Good evening and welcome to our evening City Commission meeting here on this July 27th. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We'll start off with a moment of silence and then Pledge of Allegiance as we move to roll call. So if you would join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, next we will have roll call.
Commissioner Isasi.
Present.
Commissioner Repart.
Here.
Commissioner Lanier.
Present.
Commissioner O'Connor.
Present.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Moody.
Present.
Mayor Bliss.
Yes. Thank you. So tonight we have two opportunities for public comment. The very first one will be on action items or agenda items that we're going to vote on tonight. And then the second opportunity will be at the end of the meeting, and that's for any other topic. We do have a number of action items before us tonight that we will get to. But before we get to the first opportunity for public comment, I'll introduce our interpreter, Marisol. So if you need assistance with interpretation, she'll be here to help you.
Good evening. We are pleased to provide Spanish interpretation services. This includes interpretations during the meeting and for those who want to provide public comment. If you're interested in this service, please visit the table outside the Commission chambers. Buenas noches. Estamos encantados de suministrar servicios de traducción en español para los espectadores que necesiten la asistencia esta noche. Esto incluye la traducción de toda la reunión, al igual que a aquellos que quieran suministrar algún comentario público. Si están interesados de este servicio, por favor, visiten la mesa localizada afuera. Gracias.
I'll open up the first opportunity for public comment. And again, this is public comment on action items. So earlier today, we had a number of standing committee meetings. And during those meetings, we talked about issues and we took votes. So that's the first opportunity for public comment tonight. I want to draw your attention to our meeting procedures and expectations. So just a few things that we ask. One, when you come up to the microphone, we ask that before you do, you put your name on that clipboard over there. And the reason we do that is to make sure that your name is accurate in our meeting minutes. Then you'll be asked to provide your name, the city that you live in, and we'll give you up to 3 minutes to speak. And you can follow along right here in the front. You should see a timer up there in red. And then I also want to just reiterate that this space, the chambers, we want to make sure is a safe space for everyone. And sometimes people don't have the same opinions, and we want to make sure that they feel safe coming forward and sharing their thoughts with us. So there are a number of things that we ask you to refrain from doing, including clapping and cheering, holding of signs. We also ask that you use respectful language. So very often we have young children in this room or watching, so we ask that you not curse and that you don't name call or make derogatory comments directed at a person's race or religion. So with that, I'll open up the first opportunity for public comment. And again, this is specific to agenda items. So on this section, we ask that you clearly say what agenda item that you're speaking to. So if you want to make a comment about something on appointments, you can say appointments number 1 or community development number 2. So I'll open up this opportunity. And it looks like Mr. Miller is in line to come up first and make comments.
Very pleasant good evening, everyone. Watchdog Miller reporting. Let's get to work. Very pleasant good evening, everyone. Holly. Watchdog Miller reporting. Let's get to work. 9C2, would that be the Grand Rapids Times address? That's 2 and 3. 9C5 and 6. I consider rotomilling, $9 million on this contract. I think it's carcinogenic. What's blowing out there, and I see them in my neighborhood right now. I'm really having a chance, but I'm suspicious of it. Could you bring in that eagle from Lansing? There's always muddling other stuff. And why isn't, if we're roto-milling those streets, then why not get a bus route out there on Perkins, which there were, going back on the back phone books, there was a bus stop out to Perkins going back decades. D1 and 2, big time travel, Madame Isasi, you declined to help our neighborhoods in getting our buses downtown, and yet I see you for, where is this going? Michigan Municipal League Conference. Where is that going? Big time travel, as in travel with a capital letter and block letters, you know, get our city buses down here first, get us traveling here to the meetings, you know, it's like you're afraid to see us. You ran on the Steeples program, the Steeples neighborhood, our buses don't come here, and instead of parading around the country. Next, 11.1, need dollar figures, under 5, 13, and 14. Watchdog Miller, I thank the mayor for saving the 13 Betsham and 14 Fulton East and flipping the 5 back on Wealthy. But the 5 was kicked off Giddings because of disastrous city leadership here, and because the Giddings, which had buses for decades, the Rapid Board said, well, it's too. But Giddings doesn't look like a bus street. We kicked off of Giddings, and we need that Giddings leg on the 5 so we can go out to GRPS meetings a couple of times a year. And your school crowd, a huge, they should be able to stop safely on Franklin. I see quite a few more murders out there on the EGR 6. Route 6 from East Grand Rapids parades down Lyon. And also the 5's getting kicked out, something called offset maneuver by the Rapid. And they're going to go in a lesser lineup with fewer buses on the hour and half after hour instead of the big time op at 15 and 45. So please keep the 5 in the big time lineup at 15 and 45 because they're our neighborhood people. Super Champs, Catholic Central, the new preparation, whatever it's called on Division, new high school. Let's keep the 5 in the major lineup. Thank you ever so much.
All right, anyone else who wishes to be heard on action items tonight? All right, seeing none, I'll close that opportunity for public comment, and that'll take us to approval of minutes. And these are minutes from our last meeting, which occurred on July 13th. Can I get a motion?
Moved.
Oh,
Support.
yeah, yes, I'll open up another opportunity for public comment at the end. That was only, Commissioner, that was on action items. Yeah, so we'll have another opportunity. I'm sorry, can I get a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Commissioners, any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. All right, next that will take us to petitions and communications.
The first one is a communication received from Scott Atchison regarding a downtown information center.
That is received and filed.
A communication from Andrew Sisson regarding the resignation from the West Side Corridor Improvement Authority.
That is referred to our Committee on Appointments.
Communication received from Mike Verhulst, Rockford Construction, expressing gratitude for the approval of the fiscal year 2022 fiscal plan.
That is received and filed.
And a communication received from Mike Farage expressing support for funding the police department.
And that is received and filed. All right, next that will take us to reports of city officers.
The first one is a Comptroller's report for the period of June 30, 2021 through July 13, 2021 in the amount of $24,180,990.02.
That is received and filed.
And a treasurer's report for the period of June 26, 2021 through July 13, 2021.
And that is received and filed.
And I have a third add-on report of city officers from the city clerk, a report from the Oversight and Public Accountability Office regarding the public safety meeting this afternoon. So there's a report regarding Public Safety Committee recommendations.
All right, and that is also received and filed. All right, Commissioners, that will take us to our consent agenda. Our consent agenda are items that we voted on earlier today where there was a unanimous vote. So tonight with one voice vote, those items will be adopted. So can I get a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Commissioners, any questions or comments? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, Commissioners, that'll take us to items removed from consent. We have one item that has been removed tonight.
That's a resolution approving an agreement with the U.S. Green Building Council of West Michigan to accept $223,000 in funding for an Administrative Analyst 1 position. Healthy and Sustainable Buildings Policy Specialist is a part of the Equitable, Healthy, and Zero Carbon Buildings Initiative.
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Commissioner O'Connor, you want to tell us about this?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So earlier today, our fiscal committee, this resolution came before us. And while I certainly was supportive of this initiative, we, back in September, we had received a COPS grant and that we turned down because of unknown funding in the out years as we move forward. And so while this grant covers the full cost of the employee for the first 2 years, I just wanted to be consistent in the fact that, knowing that we don't know what the out years look like, that if the funding, there's commitments to continue to fundraise for a third year, but if those commitments don't come through, I felt it important to include, an ending of this position so that, we're not on the hook for $100,000+ for something that, that isn't planned in our budget, given the future uncertainties.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. I think that's wise. Commissioners, any additional questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, Commissioners, that will take us to ordinances to be adopted, and we have 4 ordinances before us tonight.
The first ordinance is an ordinance to amend Section 4.4 of Ordinance 2019-55, establishment of a new classification, Public Services Aid.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported. Commissioner Isasi, you want to tell us about this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is an item really aligned with our Grow Your Own strategy as it relates to our Public Services Division. This gives us the opportunity to develop and backfill different public service career tracks. And this is being established under the same terms as our other aid positions. So examples include the tree trimmer aid, utility aid, skilled trades aid, with a similar salary range as well. And this was approved at our last civil service meeting, July 13th.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments? All right, this is a roll call vote tonight.
Commissioner Lanier?
Aye.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connor?
Yes.
Commissioner Moody?
Yes.
Commissioner Sassi?
Yes.
Commissioner Repart?
Yes.
Mayor Bliss?
Yes, it carries. All right, that'll take us to our second ordinance to be adopted tonight.
An ordinance amending Section 1 of the Budget Ordinance 2021-13 for fiscal year 2022, Amendment Number 1.
Can I get a motion?
Moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Commissioner O'Connor, you want to tell us about this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. A few items on here tonight. The first is a grant we received for the Parks and Recreation Department. The second is related to a position transfer for a fiscal systems analyst. The third is the addition of a budget analyst position. The second one was for a position in the executive office that's under the Fiscal Services Department. It's just taking an acting assignment and turning it into a permanent assignment. Item 4 is a grant the firefighters received from the FEMA Assistance Program. And the last item here is the item we removed from consent regarding the grant. This is the creation of that position. And that is it. There's no use of our contingent balance. It stays at $1.5 million.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments? All right, this is a roll call vote tonight.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connor?
Yes.
Commissioner Moody?
Yes.
Commissioner Sassi?
Yes.
Commissioner Repart?
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier? Mayor Bliss?
Yes, it carries. And Commissioners, can I get a motion to give this immediate effect?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, that'll take us to our third ordinance to be adopted tonight.
It is a consideration of an ordinance rezoning 3800 Stall Drive Southeast to SDPRD Special District Planned Redevelopment District to facilitate expansion of a light industrial use.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Commissioner Moody, you want to tell us about this?
Yes, ma'am. On July 13th of this year, the City Commission established on the 27th of July as the date considered rezoning of 3800 Stall Drive Southeast, which is the Neighborhood Office Services, to Special District Planned Redevelopment District. Voss Glass currently is located on Scribner Avenue Northwest, is requesting the rezoning to facilitate growth and expansion of their business. The future expansion includes a 3,480 square foot addition at the northwest corner of the building and a 25,766 square foot addition to the south. At full build-out, you will be looking at 83,084 square feet of floor area, which will be proposed. On July the 10th of this year, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on the rezoning request. No public testimonies was received. After deliberation, the Planning Commission also unanimously voted 8-0 to recommend approval of the proposal, and finding that the PRD will allow for the reasonable reuse of the building while respecting and protecting the use of its facilities.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, this is a roll call vote tonight.
Commissioner O'Connor.
Yes.
Commissioner Moody.
Yes.
Commissioner Sassi.
Yes.
Commissioner Repart.
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier. Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Mayor Bliss.
Yes, it carries. All right, that'll take us to our fourth ordinance to be adopted tonight.
It's consideration of an ordinance rezoning a portion of 1627 College Avenue Southeast to the SDIT, which is Special District Industrial Transportation Zone District.
Support?
Moved and supported. Commissioner Lanier, you want to tell us about this?
Yes, Mayor. This is a unique one, at least probably the first of my experience, where on June 10th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing for this rezoning request. There was no public testimony. However, the Planning Commission voted 5-3 to recommend to the City Commission a denial of the rezoning request. And they found that their findings was that the rezoning was inappropriate, and that the consideration should go through special land use process, the special land use process rather than the rezoning. So on July 13th, the City Commission, we had this discussion, as you all may recall, and set today as the date to vote on whether we would support the Planning Commission's denial or support the rezoning request, which is for 42 feet on 1627 College Avenue, and it is currently traditional neighborhood, low-density residential, and being switched to or requested to be switched to Special District Industrial Transportation Zone District. They're planning to, the occupants are Grand River Builders, and they're planning to do a parking lot for the existing business on the site. And it's a split zoning, so they're trying to get one zone for the property.
Yeah, that is confusing. Is Ms. Turkelson here?
She
Yes.
is.
So if we have some questions, it'd be nice if you were available to answer them. So I'll turn to my colleagues. Commissioners, questions about this item?
I think one of the points of clarification is that the motion that's currently on the floor is in support of. So if we are, just to bring clarity to this body, if we are in support of what the Planning Commission is suggesting, then a vote would be nay, as opposed to in support of. But if we want to move forward with the change that's being requested, then we would vote aye for this particular motion that's on the floor. So I wanted to bring that clarity as well.
Okay, that's helpful. Commissioners, questions about this or comments? Commissioner O'Connor?
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to understand why the SD or the special land use is preferable to the rezoning. I'm assuming it's just because the rezoning stays with the land and the special land use can be revoked at some point in time. Is that the justification because it is a parking lot? And
Good question, Commissioner.
So the rezoning, I mean, both are land use designations. The rezoning would absolutely run with the land. So would the special land use, provided it was acted upon. I think the Planning Commission felt like, as proposed, the applicant was really looking to build a parking lot to support the existing building, the existing use, or proposed use, I should say. And the special land use would facilitate that to happen. There was a lot of concern by the Planning Commission that the rezoning would then allow for an expansion of an industrial operation toward the adjacent residential district. And they had a lot of concerns about whether adequate engagement had taken place so that the neighbors understood what could happen. The zoning district does have protection measures in place. There is still a setback requirement of 25 feet. 15 of which would have to be a landscape buffer. And any heavier industrial uses in the IT district would require Planning Commission approval for that use. So there are some added measures in place that are already in place that would help protect the adjacent residential uses from any potential impacts of a heavier industrial user. But ultimately, the Planning Commission felt like there was an environmental justice issue here, that allowing for industrial uses to encroach further into a residential neighborhood was not appropriate, especially when that special land use permit process was available for consideration.
Thank you.
I have a question, Madam.
Yep, go ahead, Commissioner Morgan.
If I heard Commissioner Lanier correctly, you said it was a 3-5 vote?
5-3.
5-3,
5-3 for denying it or recommending that we do not approve.
Okay.
I have a question, and then Commissioner, do you have one? Okay. When the applicant came to us initially, did we let them know that it was probably more appropriate for a special land use?
By we, do you mean city staff?
Yeah, city staff, like, did we give some,
Yes.
so we recommended that in the beginning, and they chose not to, and to go in front of the planning commission, and then the planning commission?
That's correct.
Okay, okay. So they were given some clear guidance that a special land use was probably more appropriate.
Yes.
Okay.
First of all, it would be a more efficient way for them to move their project forward. Also, I had concerns about whether rezoning was appropriate. Of course, that's not my decision, but I cited some concerns relative to the existing pattern of development and past Planning Commission comments. So I wasn't really sure where that would go, and felt that the planning special land use would be a little bit more expeditious and still accomplish the end result that they were communicating to me.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. Commissioner Isasi?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Ms. Turkelson. You mentioned that they felt it was an environmental justice issue and talked about some of the adjoining neighborhood pieces. Were there neighbors that spoke in opposition, or can you share some of those other pieces for the record?
No, there was no public
No public
testimony that was
testimony.
received, which I don't think the Planning Commission construed as necessarily supporting the request either.
Yeah, especially if they were concerned about the engagement level.
Okay. Okay. And then just to confirm, that if we are in support of the planning commission's denial, we would vote no on this. Okay. All right, commissioners, any additional questions or comments? Okay. I will turn to our, thank you, Mr. Coulson. I will turn to our city clerk to call the question. This is a roll call vote tonight.
Commissioner Moody,
No.
Commissioner Isasi,
No.
Commissioner Repart,
No.
Commissioner Lanier,
Nay.
Commissioner Jones,
No.
Commissioner O'Connor,
No.
Mayor Bliss.
No, it fails. All right, that will take us to our fifth ordinance tonight to be considered.
It is a consideration of zoning ordinance text amendments for vintage signs and special land use extensions.
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Commissioners, we've had a number of conversations about this. I'll turn to Commissioner Jones to tell us about it.
Thanks, Mayor. Our planning department is requesting consideration of a zoning ordinance text amendment that would define and provide for a means to protect iconic signs that exist within the city of Grand Rapids. In addition, the proposed text amendment would allow the planning commission to grant one additional 6-month extension of special land use approvals.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, any questions or comments? All right, this is a roll call vote tonight.
Commissioner Isasi,
Yes.
Commissioner Repart,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier, Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connor,
Yes.
Commissioner Moody,
Yes.
Mayor Bliss.
Yes, it carries. Thank you. All right, next that will take us to our last opportunity for public comment tonight. I'll just review expectations one more time. So we ask that you come up. I see some folks are already getting ready to speak. We ask that you put your name on that clipboard over there so that we have your name accurate in the minutes. We ask that you share your name, the city that you live in. We'll give you up to 3 minutes to speak. I'm also going to ask that we make sure that the exit door is clear. So if you are standing up, we just want to make sure that people can get in and out safely. And again, I'm going to draw your your attention to what's on the screen around meeting procedures and expectations. It's really important to us to make sure that this is a safe place for everyone, regardless of their opinion or if you agree with it or not. And so we ask that you adhere and refrain from clapping and cheering or holding of signs. And also, we ask that you not curse, especially we know that some young people are watching. And we ask that you refrain from name calling or making derogatory comments directed at any person. So with that, I will open up our opportunity for public comment tonight. And we'll start with Mr. Scott Atchison.
It is now.
Okay.
My name is Scott Atchison. I live in the 3rd Ward, and I'm not going to speak about the Information Center today. I was going to come up here for Fiscal Committee number 1 about the $52,000 for your SAFE task force. I just want to tell you a little story. On the way here today, I did not feel safe. I saw the group of protesters that are going to come up here and speak to you, so I just parked my scooter next to the motorcycle. Then one of the members comes up and confronts me. I mean, gets right in my, what are you doing here? And I'm like, is this a free society? He goes, you're watching our group. And I'm like, then a couple others come stand guard around me. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? Is this the Cartoon Network? You know, and I'm thinking, I'm feeling threatened. And I said, hey, look, I'm the most colorblind person there is. He goes, typical white answer.
Okay, Scott, I'm going to stop you for just a minute. I am going to ask everyone to be respectful of those speaking. They have a right to be heard just as much as you do. And so we are very clear in this space that there are rules to be followed. And if they're not followed, I will either recess or adjourn this meeting. And no one will be able to be heard. So everyone deserves to be heard and not made to feel like their opinion is not important. So please refrain and respect the rules of this space. Go ahead, Scott.
I felt a little threatened. You know, I felt a little unsafe. Get in my face. What are you doing here? And I said, look, I'm just looking at the protest. It's like, then other people come stand guard around me like this. What's going on here? And I said, look, I was in the Army. I can defend myself. It's not a big thing. But what's ironic about it, the guy says, you're breaking the law. A group that wants to defund the police said, you're breaking the law. Who are you going to call if you defund the police? You know, I just thought it was real ironic, but I just want to say I do support the police. If they would have got with you for when this group comes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Others who wish to be heard, no clapping. There is no clapping. I am serious. I will recess or adjourn this meeting. Everyone in this space deserves to be heard. And when you clap, it can be intimidating to someone who feels differently or wants to voice a different opinion. So please be respectful of one another. That's what I'm asking you tonight. Everyone has a chance and the right to be heard by all of us. Go ahead.
My name is Paul Mayhew, and I live at 244 Heritage Commons. And I'm up here because I ended up with a bad situation with a roofer, a group by the name of Turnkey. And they came out. It was supposed to fix my roof. I paid them $5,000 to fix my roof. And they did a real snotty job, not really good. One of the guys called me a lunatic because I was trying to negotiate with him to come and fix my place. And after I was trying to negotiate with him, you know, this guy leans back and says, "You're a lunatic. I don't even want to talk to you." So the head of the inspection department here set two meetings for us to get together and try to hash out the situation. These guys were so disrespectful that they didn't even show up for the meetings that were set up with myself and the chief inspector of this city. So I was like, wow, are you gonna call me a lunatic? I'm very upset because I could have started back and called him some choice words, but that's not my style. You know, I'm gonna come to you because this guy could be on one of your lists, and you need, and he needs to be removed from the list. Nobody need to do business with a group of people called turnkey, as rotten as they did myself. And so I got a few photos that I could pass out of what I'm talking about, because one of the gutter helmets, they took a gutter helmet off my house, haven't replaced it, so my house looked like a semi-eyesore because the gutter helmet is not there, and they didn't replace it. And so, and then they wanted to pick a fight with my next door neighbor by saying that, and I'll pass this out. What do I give it to?
Commissioner, go ahead and give it to our city clerk and we'll follow up. Yep. And he'll make sure that we all get a copy.
Yeah, this here is a picture of what is proposed to help fix the problem. But it's just picking a fight from next door neighbor if I don't follow up on that. And so I don't want to fight my next door neighbor. And I have another picture of the gutter helmet that was left out. You know, so, yeah. Sorry about
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
that. Walking kind of thing.
Yeah, that's all right.
COVID ain't the best thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm just about to wind up because I know I don't want to.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Mayhew, your time is up.
Okay.
But we'll make sure that the city clerk
'cause I
shares
sent
these
a letter.
images. Yeah, and I believe we'll make sure that it's followed up on. I know that we shared it with some city staff, so we'll follow
Yeah,
up.
because this guy, I mean, he's so disrespectful that he
Yeah.
just ignored
Thank,
Mr. Fleet.
yeah.
Ignored him.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, others who wish to
Good
be heard?
evening.
Go
I'm
ahead.
Johnny Brand, owner of Brand's Restaurant on Leonard Street, and a member of the Voice for the Badge, a police support group. And we're proud to support our police because they protect our lives and yours. And we're sick and tired of them being mistreated. We do not have enough police officers in this city. We do not have enough. I know the data. You don't know it. You've got to know this. We are moving towards being an unsafe city. And what comes with that? The tax base goes down. People don't want to do business here. They don't want to live here. And I'm telling the truth. If you don't listen to me, long after you're out of office, the effects are going to still be here from what you're not doing. And believe me, this is serious. And I don't stand up here to knock any group. They can have their own opinions. That's fine with me. I work with Elijah Libet, who's a great man. He's the most impactful person in the inner city. He should be funded for Cure the Violence. This man works hard and he believes in stop violence for the citizens, for the inner city, and to help our police. Are our police perfect? No. Well, you aren't either. Let's be clear on that, too. And so it just gets so discouraging because this keeps happening. And I also think the morale, it's at an all-time low. Believe me, it is. It really, truly is. They're leaving. They do not want to work for a city that does not support them. We got 3 applicants recently. Nobody wants to be a cop with a narrative against them in the country. You've got to be kidding me. You should do ride-alongs mandatory. They should have a simulation shooting classes, and you should do that mandatory so you can see what goes on. We have ex-officers here that are members of Voice for the Badge, and they'll speak to it, and Brothers in Blue also. We're not against any group, so you can be against us. I don't care. But we're not here to cause problems. We're here to have it be a safe city for everybody. We've got over 200,000 citizens, and they all need to be protected. You want to be safe, right? All of us. What about your son, daughter, mother, father that was in a life-threatening situation? Do you know who you'd call? Yes, the police. Do you know who'd come and save you? It's just like a police officer said in another city. A girl was abducted, a 6-year-old girl. He said, I couldn't get there fast enough. I just wanted to get there to help. Our police have compassion, humanize the badge. They're real people. They have feelings. They got just lambasted at that riot. Mayor, you thank the city for helping clean up the graffiti and the glass. What about our police who stood out there and took abuse frozen water bottles, urine, yelling in their faces saying, we're going to find your wife or husband and do this. They took pathetic abuse, but they stood strong for our city. And I love our police. I support our police. Are they perfect? No. But we need them, and we need enough to be a safe city for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brand.
No, if I don't fall down, I'll sit down. Yeah.
Good
Hi,
evening.
welcome.
My name is Kathleen Postmus. I'm a resident of Plainfield Township, but I'm also a retired GRPD SWAT and narcotics officer of 28 years. Put my life on the line every day to serve this community. Not one of you has shown respect for the police publicly. Not one of you. You guys need to lead by example. You sit up here, Mayor Bliss, you ask for respectful language, yet you allow a group of petulant children to disrespect you and bully you. The last meeting, they said, F the police and F you. You allow disrespect every meeting by these people who are not the majority, but the minority. I wore this shirt for a reason tonight. This is Bobby Kosminski. I was in court with him a week before he was murdered. Murdered. He paid the ultimate sacrifice to protect all of you, every one of you. His daughter is now growing up without her father. He was my brother. He's my family. And these officers that are here and the people that support us are my family also. This community needs to be a family. We need to stand together. Mr. Atchison, that just spoke, should not have to be afraid to come here and share his opinion or his thoughts. Not one person in here should feel intimidated or harassed or bullied. You guys are afraid. You let them bully you. Well, I'm not afraid. And these other people are not afraid. There's a blue wave coming to Grand Rapids of support for our police officers. And I certainly hope each and every one of you have the guts to get on board or get left behind, because we will make sure that you're never elected to any position ever again. Thank you.
All right, others who wish to be heard?
Good evening, Mayor. How you doing? And the rest of the commissioners. My name is Dino. I run the youth ministry in Grand Rapids. We used to have police officers coming in once, twice a week. There's so much activity going on in the city now. We're lucky to get them once a month. We're thankful when we do. We support the police 100%. I have military. I have, you name it, I have everybody in our building, every branch of the military there, and police officer, current and past, who support us, come in and train with our kids. Keep in mind, the kids that train in our gym, that come to our facility, are people that we know, they're children. And we want this to be safe for the kids. I know what's going on in the city is like a bit out of control. That is why I moved in 7 guys into my building to make sure it's safe out there. And they're armed and they're safe. I mean, there's a reason what's going on. It's horrible out there. We appreciate everything the city's doing. I do. Being Grand Rapids' first world champion and being in support with Floyd Mayweather Sr., our program together, what we've done, there's almost 450 kids a week in here. And we're going to continue growing, continue doing what we must do. The city has gotten so far out of control. Majority of the people that come in and speak their mind, 3/4 of them don't even live here. You know, I'm sure of that. I know for a fact a lot of them don't. Regardless, all I want to say is that we support the police. What I'm doing today would have never happened if 25 years ago a Grand Rapids police officer did not save my life. And then 5 years later, another one that saved my life. I'm alive today because of that, and I will continue to keep giving back. And I hope that the city gets more support in here with this situation going on. Tim is also a boxer at our gym. Come here. And going to apply as a Grand Rapids police officer. We hope real soon. And speak.
Yeah, exactly. I just think it's a good city. Everything is crazy right now, obviously, with the police and everything. That's why myself, I feel like I'll be a good candidate to apply. Therefore, I came down here today to put a name with a face and meet everybody and just say I just hope that everything gets better in the city.
But I know right now that everybody that's off the hook didn't grow up this way. And I know they have children and don't appreciate the violence around their children. So don't let other people be on the wrath of your violence. It makes no sense at all. We support law enforcement. Mayor, you're doing an awesome job. We love you. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. All right, others who wish to be heard? Hi, welcome.
Hi, my name is Melissa Puplis. I'm a Grand Rapids resident and also a proud member of Voice for the Badge. I'm speaking tonight because I want to voice my support for the Grand Rapids Police Department. Our men and women that protect our community need our support financially. We need more officers. The number of officers that we currently have, it's dangerously low. Even scarier, many are set to retire and replacements are not readily available. And I mean, why would officers, I guess, even want to apply to the GRPD when they're basically going to be hated, when they can work for other departments and be supported and respected? We ask the world of our officers. We're constantly asking them to bridge the gap in our community, but they do that and more. I mean, they have the On Base program, a youth baseball camp. We now have clergy on patrol, a faith-based outreach. They offer civilian classes. But yet if an officer stops and shoots some hoops with our youth, it's considered propaganda. I just think it's time for our community and our community leaders to step up. Our community needs to start respecting the law and authority. We need to start showing support to those that protect us every day. A couple weeks ago, my fiance and I were up north, and we happened to talk to this other couple that was up there, and they asked where we're from. We replied, Grand Rapids. Their response was, I heard it's getting bad down there. I hate hearing that. Let's change that. Let's make Grand Rapids a great place to live again. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, others who wish to be heard?
Hello, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Tom Van Gemmert, and I'm Vice President of the West Side Connections and Neighborhood Organization. And I believe I represent similar views of other neighborhood organizations, or I hope I do, when I'm in support of the Voice for the Badge and also the Grand Rapids Police Department. I'm here tonight to compel you not to defund the GRPD. Police officers around the country keep us safe from drugs, violence, gangs, domestic abuse, and a myriad of other threats to the American way of life. No other branch of government or social service agency can do the job in quite the same way. Here are 3 reasons not to defund the police. Number 1, it reduces the support for training. Defunding the police takes away the resources that are needed to make sure officers are properly trained. Good policing requires a commitment to robust training that must be ongoing. This requires funding. When police departments' budgets are cut, violence and civilian injuries increase. Number 2, it hinders officers' recruitment and retention. Lower police budgets mean fewer police officers keeping our streets and our communities safe. Defunding the police places a greater strain on existing officers and increases the likelihood that they'll quit or not perform as effective because they're burned out. Number 3, allows dangerous, violent criminals to win. Defunding the police is a bad idea that it lets the bad actors in our society put everyone else in harm's way. It's hard to see the consequences of defunding the police until it happens, at which time it's already too late. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm John Burry. I'm a resident of Wyoming, Michigan, Greater Grand Rapids. I'm here tonight also to say I ditto what every one of these folks have had to say before me in supporting our police. You know, I never thought much about Veterans Day. We have a son that was killed in Iraq. And then when that happened to us, it made me realize not only just what every military men and women are willing to do, but every one of these police officers here in our community are signing a blank check to put their lives on the line for strangers. Strangers. So many who care and few that don't care. But I care. I've learned over time to have the respect for our fellow officers, our military, police, and fire. As a child, you grow up, you're immature, you don't think much. You get stopped by a cop when you're young, you think, oh, I'm being bullied. That's BS. We ask and seek knowledge and understanding and support one another. We ask that you continue to support our police. Don't let the minority become the majority. The other night I seen that movie about the purge. Defunding the police will be just the beginning of what I would say would be the start of a purge. So many senseless people's lives are taken because people are not sticking together and standing up and willing to accept their differences and appreciate the differences that we have amongst one another. I don't care what color, what race, what nationality, what your creed is. If you show me respect, I will show each and every one of you respect. We may butt heads, but I have learned to listen, because if you shut your mouth, you will come to understand maybe just a little bit about what this person is trying to get through to you. All lives matter.
Mr.
The
Byrd?
unborn lives matter.
Mr. Byrd, can you
so
direct-
let's stand together
Can you direct your
and
comments to
continue to
us?
support our police each and every day. Do not give up and do not give in. We appreciate these officers. It's hard. I know there might be a couple here and there that might be considered bad apples, but then you got to understand they're human and they too put their lives on the line. And there are days like us. We have bad days and we let some things out that we shouldn't. I, for one, have. And for that, I always seek forgiveness. So I just pray for the safety of our men and women who serve our country, our cities, through our police, fire, and military. And thank you. Continue the support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. All right, others who wish to be heard?
I'm Courtney Harps. I'm from Grand Rapids. I'm here tonight to say do not defund the police department because I learned in the last 6 months if it's not for them, I wouldn't be here, my granddaughter wouldn't be here in my son's care because she was being abused and taken out of the home and put in my son's care, and the police were doing their job to protect my 2-year-old granddaughter. And they're here to protect everybody's lives, not just a certain race or anything else like that. They're here to protect everybody. And it's not fair to defund them when they're putting their lives on the line, when they have family at home. They're here to protect us and serve the people of Grand Rapids and other cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. All right, others wish to be heard?
How you doing? My name is DeAndre Jones. I stay in the city of Grand Rapids, First Ward. First of all, I heard somebody mention July 10th. That's my birthday, so I got to say that. I heard that. But first of all, I like to talk about the participatory budgeting process that the city of Grand Rapids is going to be doing. I know that $1 million is going in the third ward. I believe that's about $250,000 more than, I forgot the name of the specific, I forgot the name of the specific thing, but I like that that the city is actually allocating dollars to let people in the city of Grand Rapids actually vote on something that can be implemented by the people for the people. I believe that if we're going to talk about housing and affordable housing, nobody take my idea. Like I said, I believe that the city or anybody, we should talk about 3D printing. It's about $10,000 to print. To get a 3D printer, it's like almost $4,000 to print a house. You can build a 3-story house. You can literally print a house in 24 hours. And I believe that'll be an innovative way, creative, sustainable, renewable way to attack the problems that we have like housing, because it's a lot of money to build a house with bricks or other natural resources that we have. But if we were printing homes, I believe we'll be able to build to stop the housing crisis. I believe you'll have a lot more people talking about the innovative idea other than people talking about, oh, we need more housing. That's an innovative way. It's $1 million. I know in the other wards it's about a couple $100,000 that we could use. Also, like to talk about the care of violence thing. The Urban League actually reached out to me to be one of the people to participate, to be a violence interrupter. I'm always in the trenches. I'm out there in the Elks. I'm out there on the south side a lot. I'm out here late night. A lot of police officers know me. Recently, I just stopped a fight in East Town. It was two girls pulling each other's weave out. It was crazy, but I ended up stopping one of the fights before it actually started. And so I believe just with all of the credentials that I built, the trust that I built with the community, with the African-American community, with a lot of different minorities, the majority community, I believe that I'd be a great candidate just because when the care of violence was actually introduced into the city at Neeland Church, I was there. So I've been watching the whole thing unroll. So if that's what you wanted to talk to me about, Commissioner Moody, I've been on it. I definitely want to be able to reduce the violence because I got a lot of friends that's really in the trenches, that's in those gang rivalries, that's actually, a part of those things. And I always talk to my friend and say that, hey, I want to be the person that really stops people from beefing. I know it's hundreds of shootings. It's hundreds of shootings, and a lot of people aren't dying this year, but there are hundreds of shootings. So I always tell myself if I can be able to reduce the violence, because I'm really out there in the trenches. I'm not just talking. I'm really about it. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Others wish to be heard?
Hello, my name is Donnie Santiago. I live in the 3rd Ward. I've been a Grand Rapids native for the past 28 years, 29, excuse me. Just had a birthday. What I would like to address today is the consistent harassment of GRPD, not only against protesters, but also against myself in my personal life. I'm being consistently harassed by GRPD while I demonstrate my First Amendment right. I have the right to go out and protest wherever, however I choose. As long as I am not breaking any laws, I am allowed to demonstrate that First Amendment right. I would also like to address GRBD is constantly making repeated statements that they are underfunded. Also, in the same breath, protecting a Proud Boys freedom of speech rally, I'm wondering if there's a certain permit for that because I'd love to know. GRPD, I would like to address GRPD's disgusting attempt to combine church and state with their clergy project. That's absolutely disgusting. Shouldn't happen. I'm here to also address GRPD. We're going to call it a accountability insurance. So when their situation happens of GRPD expending a life wherever it is that may be in the city of Grand Rapids, them individually, the police officer by name is charged with insurance. He has to be able to pay for that insurance at the expense that he may take a life. We are no longer, as the community, being responsible for the expense of GRPD's, the lives that they take. We are no longer going to use our tax dollars to pay for that cost. I also would love to address the fact that our city warehouses is dumping into the river. I would love to address that situation because that's been a consistent for decade after decade. You're dumping chemicals in that river. People are now, they took down the dam, so raise it up so tourists can come and enjoy the nice river, but the river's not so nice. There's stuff being put in that river. People are no longer eating out of that river because of that reason. That needs to be addressed. I would also like to address the situation in the city's budget. How many times do you see the word resource or crime prevention? Now, how many times do you see the word patrol? That's a problem. City's funding, the only money that's spent in the city on the black community is through gentrification. If I have to break that down for you, that means warehouse/factory labor exploitation. That means hourly wages not staying the same or meeting up with the same cost of living. That also means cleaning up and buying out whole neighborhoods on the premises of capitalism satisfaction. What are the percentages? What I would like to know are the percentages that it takes that you're going to reallocate money into those communities, the unhoused community. I want to know the exact dollar amounts of those.
Thank you.
Thank you. Black Lives Matter.
Hi, welcome.
My name is Christian. I live in the 3rd Ward also. I'm here to address City Council regarding GRPD and their constant harassment of protesters and the constant fear that many of us have just walking the streets of the city because GRPD constantly pulls, laughs, points, calls us names, gives us nicknames like we're a bunch of animals. I also want to address the fact that over the weekend we had a event in front of St. Mary's where people were demonstrating in the street. People were using a megaphone. Multiple people were using a megaphone. And unfortunately, GRPD did nothing but come and watch the few counter-protesters that showed up to make sure that misinformation wasn't spread about about vaccines. Just a double standard that, again, we see everywhere in Grand Rapids, especially with the Black and brown community and the white community, where white people are allowed to protest and use their First Amendment right and use megaphones and do whatever they want, like we saw last year during the anti-lockdown protest, like we saw during, the Knoll brothers were here. They were using megaphones, the people who tried to kidnap the governor. Nothing was done to them about megaphones, but the vice president of JFPL has been arrested 10 times because of megaphone usage. I also want to address the fact that GRPD also came up to us before our demonstration and let us know about the procedures they have for demonstrating in that way. They said that you are ticketed first for breaking the ordinance, and then you are arrested. And within a 6-month span, if you don't get another ticket, you aren't arrested again. Then why is it that Donnie Santiago has been arrested over 10 times repeatedly without giving any tickets? That's something that Chief Payne, who's on his phone over there, not actually paying attention to the meeting in any way, because he doesn't care what we say. That's something that he has to address with his police officers, because he has no control over his police. He has no control. Just like last year when his police officers brutally assaulted Breonna Taylor's family. And he told them to stand down over the phone. We have footage of that, him saying stand down, and his officers going, we're going to do what we want. This is the kind of chief you want in place? I also want to address again the city commission, specifically Nathaniel Moody, who keeps saying he's not going to defund the GRPD because he wants to line his pockets with money. I want to probably address half of you for having the police union in your pocket, because that's really what it is. I want to address Mark Washington, who's done a terrible job as city manager and helped gentrify neighborhoods of his own race, allowing more and more and more wealthy white people to come and move in. How is that going to help the houseless community that's downtown? How is that going to help the Southeast Side, who's very underfunded and continues to still deal with underfunded community? Putting more police in those communities does nothing. It doesn't help the community in any way. It hurts it. Building these relationships requires GRPD to actually do their job right and not beating black people in the streets, and they've done that. Being a black person in the streets and then going and playing basketball with kids does nothing.
Others wish to be heard? Hi, welcome. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Jalen Reynolds. I don't come on behalf of any particular organization, just someone who has went through the criminal justice system fully. And I will say that on one hand, law enforcement is indispensable to a free society and a safe society. But the vision has become what people call a safe society. I call a prison. And that's because there can be no due process and equal protection of the law when there is selective enforcement. But I do feel like a lot of pressure has been put on the GRPD, but I've read the Constitution. It's kind of more about the prosecutor. Where's Chris? And I don't call out, a prosecutor, with a great degree. I'm scared to do something like that. I'm gonna be honest. But what I'm saying is that the office of the prosecutor is responsible for prosecuting abuses of power, and I don't hear much commentary from that office regarding those abuses. And if it's about justice, if that's really what we want, then the policies in place don't effectuate that end. And there are issues that people don't know are issues. Like the moment you get arrested, you go to county jail and you can't access the law library. And the problem with that is this, and I'm gonna keep it real simple. They do give you court-appointed attorneys, but if I'm the judge whether or not I'm receiving effective assistance of counsel, How can I do so if I can't even read the standards in which they're judged by? So the end result is you only being able to take what is given. And that, what's the procedure for negotiating a plea deal? We talk about trials and the right to go to trial, but there's no constitutional protection for guilty plea when 95 to 99% of people plead guilty. You don't actually really have a chance to fight the system or to say what you want. You really don't, because to say you have free speech, but to even get a permit, is it really free when you need to get permission? When you want to say something and you want to speak up, but it depends on what you're saying to who. And I don't believe that the doors are truly open. And what I've heard so far, and that's not to disrespect any of my fellow citizens in exercising their free speech today, what I've heard is an echo chamber. It's a tautology, just relentless expression of one side. And that isn't actually a plurality society. That's just argument. And it's based on both sides' fear and insecurities. And I do believe that more discussion, honest discussion between sides is necessary, and that this meeting is an appropriate venue.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. All right, others wish to be heard?
Hello, my name is Allie. I'm the president of Justice for Black Lives, and I'm also a resident of Grand Rapids. Would have been here at the last meeting, but unfortunately I was stuck bailing out my organization's vice president yet again. And it's kind of funny because that same day, myself and someone else from my organization were just talking about how long it's been since the Grand Rapids Police Department has messed with us. And it wasn't in a sense of, oh, maybe they're listening to us and they understand. No, it was in a sense as, what are they planning? Because that is our reality. Our reality is that white supremacists that beat up unhoused community members get more of a leeway than black organizers. Their First Amendment rights are protected, but ours aren't. With or without a permit, we still get harassed by the Grand Rapids Police Department. Not only was Donnie arrested for what should have been a civil infraction, one of the officers involved put a member of my organization in a chokehold, which is interesting given the fact that Chief Payne himself said that chokeholds or any type of neck restraint was banned from the Grand Rapids Police Department and was never trained in the first place. So question, why are we allowing officers to go outside of their training? And also, why are we allowing officers to use a tactic that was banned? Sean McCammon, Brandon Plaster, and Justin Koteski were the officers involved in our vice president's arrest on the 13th. Both McCammon and Koteski were involved in the incident in which Diabit Hood was punched in the face, in fact, and held down by his neck as he screamed the exact same words George Floyd screamed as he was dying. I can't breathe. Chief Payne, Mark Washington, Commissioner Moody, Commissioner Jones, Brandon Davis. I may have grown up in a completely different generation than all of you, but I've seen the hardships my father had to go through just for being a black man, and I don't doubt for a second that you all have experienced those same hardships. So it makes me sick to my stomach when I see that you don't do anything about the blatant racism from the Grand Rapids Police Department. A couple weeks ago, I was reading about the riots that took place here in 1967. You, Commissioner Moody, were interviewed for that article and about what you remembered when you were younger, when you were 12 years old. And you said, and I quote, "I did understand there was something wrong for a community to rise up." If your 12-year-old self can understand that, how is it so hard for you to understand that there still, in fact, is something wrong? Or better yet, why is it so hard for you to actually do something about it? As for you, Chief Payne, I am very disgusted that you kneeled in front of the family of Breonna Taylor, yet your police department arrested the same man over 5 times on the very street that was dedicated to her. You should all be ashamed for yourself. And telling us you support us expressing our First Amendment rights and trying to silence us is disgusting, and it's gaslighting. Defund the Grand Rapids Police Department. Black Lives Matter.
Your time's up. Thanks. Others who wish to be heard?
Hello, my name is Andra. I'm from Grand Rapids. I'm going to repeat what Allie said and say defund GRPD down to 32%. The last meeting you said that you recently signed a contract with the Grand Rapids Urban League, so I've been doing some research on Cure Violence. They state they have a three-pronged approach which involves 1, anticipating where violence may occur and intervening before it happens. 2, identifying those at highest risk for violence and working to change their behavior. And lastly, influencing social norms to discourage the use of violence. Sounds like more policing with extra steps. That has already been proven to not stop crime before it happens. It mentions nothing about providing actual resources. We have been asking you for a year now for resources, especially in the 3rd Ward. You can have a tactic team on the streets assessing behavior and indications that may lead to violence, but it is going to be futile if you do not provide people with at least the bare necessities that they need to survive. And I say at least because we really need to thrive on more than just breadcrumbs. They talk of changing social norms, but that can only happen when you change the material conditions under which those social norms apply to. Here's an example. If you go to the 3rd Ward, you'll find drive-by shootings, but if you drive just a few miles east, you'll see people in East Grand Rapids jogging around and smiling. They're smiling because their needs are met. They never go for want, and the political system always caters to them because they have that money. So that's your example of the social norms applying to the material conditions. And we don't need charity, we need resources. We need structural change. In policing, people often talk about bad apples. Well, bad apples come from rotten trees, and the rotten trees are law enforcement agencies imbued with structural racism. Once again, we can talk about material conditions here. If you have a social system that's structured around a portion of the population being dispossessed, discriminated against, and underfunded, then it stands to reason that the law enforcement and the legal system will be antagonistic to that population as well. So that's what we mean by structural racism and classism. This is why we should take money out of the police department and allocate it to the community according to where it's needed most. The most disenfranchised communities, like our Black and brown communities, and the unhoused. Another idea that one of the JFBL leaders had come up with was for officers to have their own liability insurance, similar to doctors who have malpractice insurance. This would ensure widespread accountability in the police force. Thank you.
Thank you. Others wish to be heard?
Hello, everyone. I'm Von Ruff. I live in Grand Rapids. Kind of interesting that everybody that's supposed to be honor and respect just left their seats. But couple of words that stuck out to me is drugs, gangs, propaganda. I think President Nixon brought drugs into black communities with guns, right? Propaganda. We got a black chief police not doing nothing. I just heard that his own police officers don't even respect him. Sounds like he doesn't need to be there because he's not respected. Or we need more black officers. Like the one that said that he was going. Let's see, reduce their support of training. Like they don't even use their training at all, like sharp codes, like show codes. Can they do that in the Army? I mean, you got a gun, like you got a taser. I don't see what's the point of having a gun and a taser, and then you got to do show codes. You don't even need that. So defund the police on their weapons. The start of a purge. I think that already started here. I mean, how many black people have been killed by police officers in America? That sounds like a gang targeting civilians, which looks like we're with the purge. Second thing I want to talk to, I don't want to talk about the police all day. I mean, they don't do nothing. They don't help anyone. They're scared of their own self. They don't even look at themselves in the mirrors. Probably don't even look at their families. They're unhappy. Probably divorced. A lot of them drink, do drugs behind closed door, and then want to come out to the community and say, hey, you guys got to follow the law, but they break the laws. I work right across the street. We have a Bear City Festival. I see many officers in there drinking and driving after the event, I'm sure. But who's going to police the police? We can't call the police. Speaking of that, I work across the street. Parking. Why do I have to come early in the morning, 6 o'clock, to work, then get parking, got to pay for parking, a minimum of 3 hours for parking, when my job, we probably work for like 4 to 5 hours. So that's 9 out of 10 going to resolve in a parking ticket. Then I got to come back at night after the event by like 10 o'clock. Don't get off until 2 o'clock in the morning. from my understanding, the city owns the Voss place, the parking. I feel like if we work there and we bring in millions of dollars to the city and we pay taxes to the city, we should have free parking. And that is something that we should have because I probably spent about 120 in taxes last year. I mean, parking tickets last year. Then I had to pay taxes as well. I should not have to do that when I'm making money, bringing entertainment and helping build it for the city to keep revenue, new buildings, and a safe environment. But the police is not very safe here. It's just very, 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 very bad. They don't do nothing. Like, they beat people out of cars, punching them. Like, them are thugs, honestly, not officers. Why do they not need honor and respect?
All right, others wish to be heard?
Good evening. My name is Ames. I'm an ally organizer with Defund the GRPD, Cosecha, Grand Rapids Area Mutual Aid Network, and other groups. As I witnessed the budget process this year, I was incredibly disappointed to hear city officials talk about how they were doing everything as required according to the state of Michigan, as though that was enough. The state of Michigan has a very anti-local control policy when it comes to anything that might support people struggling and oppressed in our city. I don't think of the state of Michigan and its current legislature as the model to be following. I continue to be disappointed that only in-person comments and not phone-in comments are allowed at this inaccessible meeting while we remain in a pandemic. We are told that it's because other cities are not accepting call-in public comments now that their city meetings are also open for in-person attendance. That is supposed to be good enough. But you're accountable to the people of Grand Rapids, first and foremost. You should always be looking first to us, and you should be looking to the most marginalized of us. Black and brown, queer and trans, disabled, immigrant, non-English speaking people. Unhoused people, those who have been evicted and abused by churches and religious institutions, those who are incarcerated and formerly incarcerated, and all of the intersections of the above. That's who you are accountable to, more than the state of Michigan, not to other cities, not the cops, and not to respectable clergy who are now acting as cops. You cannot make minor changes to the way policing is done and then steal the language of your critics, like Defund the GRPD, to say that you are, quote, reimagining public safety. When core leadership at Defund the GRPD says terms like reimagining public safety and community care, they are imagining futures without police, without agents who protect property over people, and without agents who harm communities. They are imagining futures where neighbors are taking care of each other in new and creative ways, where neighbors are taught the skills to support each other and problem solve together, and they have resources and money to spend time on that. They're imagining futures where the resources that are known to keep people safe, housing, transportation, education, and food, are available as proactive ways to support the community rather than reactive violence brought on to the police.
Ms. Carpenter, your
Defund the
time's up.
GRPD.
Ms. Carpenter, your time is up.
All right, I'm not a miss. So I have brought other
Your-
comments from people for whom it was not safe to attend tonight
That-
because of COVID.
Your time is up. You can give them to our city clerk.
May I read these comments?
No, you may not. You can submit them and they'll be put into the public record.
Could we start the timer again so their words could be heard, please?
Each individual can speak once for 3 minutes.
So I'm to give them where?
To our city clerk.
My name is Queen Kirby. I am an ally with Defund the GRPD. I live in the 49503. And I am honestly just talking off the top of my head because we now have the option to give the speeches of those who were not able to be here to you. I do hope you read them.
Do you want me to try to get them back so you can read?
I would love to read one.
Can I get them back
Thanks.
for now and then give them back to you? I also will read one.
Go ahead, City Clerk.
You'll get the time back, because they call it, and that time back too.
The time's already started.
All right, I'll read fast.
Here you go.
Thank you.
The last one, I think, is mine.
Okay. My name is Maggie Smith, and as a disabled person during Disability Pride Month, I want to personally congratulate the entire City Commission, and especially Mayor Bliss, on successfully reaching new heights of ableism with your inhumane refusal to make your public meetings accessible to all people. I join in the demands from Justice for Black Lives and Defund the GRPD that you make your meetings accessible to all people in this city, with the word accessible not limited to its legal definition, but open to its whole human definition, in which the voices of all people in our city are welcome and have a platform at our public meetings. One of the facets of white supremacy that we are very good at in Grand Rapids and the U.S. is rewriting history so that we never have to re-examine it. One of the ways that we rewrite the Americans with Disabilities Act is we tell ourselves it was universally approved piece of legislation that was widely recognized as appropriate and just. This was not the case at all. Many, many people fought against the accessibility that was required in this act. This is a direct legacy of our white supremacist history, the division of us versus them, the hoarding of power by the people in power, and the culture of scarcity. There is not enough freedom in this message, and access to go around, and we must limit who has it. Oh, is the message, pardon me. You are continuing in this unjust legacy by refusing to allow phone-in public comment in your meetings. You work for the people of Grand Rapids, as does your staff. None of you are ignorant enough to believe that a meeting that requires a physical presence is accessible to all people, or even most people. Maggie says she struggles with in-person attendance as a person with multiple physical and mental disabilities, and yet she is protected by her whiteness and being cisgender at all times. By requiring in-person attendance for a person to use their voice to speak to you in these meetings, you are unjustly and inhumanely cutting out large swaths of people, many of whom are black and brown, who face significant barriers to being here in person. Shame on you for making us demand these basic rights from you. Thank you.
Others who wish to be heard? Hi, welcome.
Hello. My name is Emily Oxford, and I am a resident of the 2nd Ward. Before I get into my speech, if you could call it, this piece of paper that I've typed out with tons of notes on it, I would first like to say that I am solidly in agreement with what the last two speakers have said about these meetings needing to be accessible in the truest sense of the word. I would also like to express, in response to the people who showed up here in support of the cops, that the core morality of what they're asking for, that humanity be acknowledged, that people can be safe in their own city, that people have a right to, act in a nonviolent manner in a society that is supposed to protect them. I am in agreement with that core morality. Where we disagree is in that they seem to believe that the police itself is the source of that morality, when in reality, GRPD has shown a consistent record of brutalizing especially black and brown people and even white people who show up to support them. And also when there are when an internal affairs investigation is initiated about these incidents, internal affairs is internal to the GRPD, and the officers are very rarely held accountable for their actions. I want to share a recent personal experience regarding police oversight. I was there when 3 officers arrested Donnie Santiago at a peaceful rally to discuss talking points for the city commission meeting 2 weeks ago. He was arrested for using a bullhorn, which the chief of police had said was legal for the Proud Boys to use a few days before. One of the officers used some kind of neck maneuver to force supporter Kirk's shots to the ground. This was a very scary experience for me, even as someone who didn't experience this, and even as a white person who has just about every privilege I can think of under the sun, because it felt like the democracy and the free speech that I realized I had been taking for granted had melted away in front of my own eyes. But I am not confident at all that GRPD will hold these officers accountable for what they did. The 3 officers involved, as Allie Bates said before, were Brandon Plasterer, Justin Kotecki, and Sean McCammon. The next day after the protest, I learned that Sergeant McCammon and Officer Kotecki were involved in the arrest, beating, and refusal of requested medical care to Diabate Hood, who was arrested after a passenger in his car littered. The officers say that they found illegal guns in his car, but they had no warrant. Under what rights were they even searching it? Internal Affairs found no wrongdoing with anything that those officers did. And 2 of those officers showed up to arrest Donnie Santiago and brutalized people who showed up in support of Justice for Black Lives message. The city is not safe for everyone, but it should be. Defund GRPD.
All right, others wish to be heard? Hi, welcome.
Kristen Green, Howard City. I work, volunteer, and attend school in Grand Rapids. I was unable to attend the meeting 2 weeks ago, so I wanted to say that it is sure nice to see you all in person again. This past year has been tough watching you rifle through your paperwork, talk to other people in your office, or turn away to make faces during public comments while virtual. The level of apathy shown by this group while the community expressed their concerns to you is disturbing. Perhaps seeing that we are living, breathing people will allow you the opportunity to treat us with humanity. But that is probably doubtful too. Considering you are the same commissioners and mayor who forcibly removed 100 people experiencing homelessness from Hartside Park this winter, 2 days before Christmas, without adequate resources, without the hot team social worker present, while you were out of the office and on vacations, in the middle of a pandemic. But I digress. On to the present. I hope you all have spent the last 2 weeks on phone calls demanding that the political repression of Donnie Santiago ends immediately, especially since it was publicly stated that the Proud Boys are allowed to use megaphones and that GRPD will protect their rights to speech and assembly, while only days later, GRPD arrested this prominent black leader for expressing himself in the same manner. The behavior of GRPD reminds me of Hitler's brown shirts, snatching up anyone who opposes them and their political or social agenda. The GRPD stalked and used excessive force against BIPOC community leaders in attempts to silence them. On multiple occasions, GRPD has walked into crowds at lawful protest and targeted BIPOC leaders because those leaders have spoken out against them, time after time, and again, jailing them as a means to silence them and intimidate others. We have a right to be out here speaking up against such force. 10 minutes before the last meeting, these brutes rolled up and went straight for Mr. Santiago, arresting him so his voice could not be heard at a meeting where police budget conversations took place. That is political repression. If you do not speak out in opposition of these arrests and the continued harassment of BIPOC leaders in this community, you are complicit in the political repression of your own community members you say that you serve. Even Chief Payne finds it difficult to rein in their power, as his own men have disobeyed his command. You need to get ahead of this, and it happens in the budget and funding. I believe that you have miscalculated our commitment to justice in Grand Rapids, and your apathy only fuels us. Defund GRPD.
All right, others who wish to be heard?
My name is Wylan, and I am a resident of the 2nd Ward. I see GRPD at work. I see them heavily patrolling predominantly black and brown neighborhoods. I hear of their constant interactions with unhoused folks. I watch videos of unconstitutional arrests, and I read the cowardly statements they put out. It is totally unacceptable and totally inappropriate to put out a statement regarding the Proud Boys' rights of assembly and speech days before arresting Donnie for assembling and speaking. I see GRPD show up in their riot gear, eager to serve, jumping off their bikes to harass anyone they feel they can. They serve Grand Rapids Capital, Grand Rapids Tourism, Grand Rapids businesses, but I don't see one trickle that positively affects the people of Grand Rapids. GRPD is throwing tantrums funded by our tax dollars. Defund GRPD and fund education, housing, healthcare, clothe and feed and meet the needs of the people. I feel sick that my check, my city taxes, will be used to terrorize Grand Rapids. Resources are crime management. Meet the needs of Grand Rapids residents who fund the misconduct. Doctors pay when they kill or harm. They have malpractice insurance. Grand Rapids residents pay when GRPD kills or harms. It is past time GRPD is defunded, and it is past time Grand Rapids Police obtain their own insurance. I yield my time.
Thanks. All right, others wish to be heard?
Hi, good evening. My name is Rochelle Hyde, and I live in the downtown district of Grand Rapids. I have lived in Grand Rapids my entire 32 years of life, and I've never been more disgusted by this city, honestly. First of all, I would like to say, side note from what I have written, 2 weeks ago, when Donnie Santiago was arrested, 10 minutes before the meeting, I find it funny and ironic that through the entire meeting that we were watching from the jail, the entire city commission meeting, not a single thing was available. His fingerprints were waiting. Everything was like on a hold. And then 3 minutes, the meeting got over at 9 o'clock. 9:03, his bail was available. You think that's ironic, or you think that's intentional? They didn't want him here. That's not okay. That's not humanity that all of these voices for the badge people are talking about. Why? Why is it so harmful that our vice president is here to speak to you? What did he do tonight? He spoke, right? Did he use vulgar language? Did he call anybody out? Was he violent? Was he aggressive? Absolutely not. I want you all to realize that the people that are standing in front of you are people. We are human beings, and not a single one of us is here to be aggressive or be violent. We just want our voices to be heard. We want you to understand what we're trying to get across to you, and it's not working. It's not working. You say you want us to talk to you and you want to have a conversation with the community. I would love that. I have lived here for 32 years and never once have I been more disgusted in this city as I am now. And the reason being is that we are out here relentlessly for the last year. Relentlessly. Not to push our aggression in people's faces or to be violent in any way. But we want people to understand that there is a problem in this city. And the people sitting here looking at me have control of that. You have control of this city. Why do you allow people to come up here week after week and beg you to do something? You're not listening. If you're listening, you're not doing anything about it. That's the problem. I want you all to realize that we may be young. Most of us have college degrees. Most of us, we're not unemployed like people think we are. We're educated and we're smart and we're intelligent and Black.
Thank you. Your time's up. All right, others wish to be heard?
My name is Dighton. I have lived in this city for 22 years, which is how old I am. I can say that I've had, of all of my interactions with police, the only interactions as a white person that have been negative are interactions that involve me protesting with and on behalf of communities of color who are being marginalized. And I think it follows a heartbreaking pattern of where in 2019 the city was ranked among the top middle-sized cities in economic growth, while also being simultaneously ranked one of the worst cities to live if you are a person of color. I think that is absolutely disgusting, and I think it highlights a major pattern that I have been awoken to in this city. And I think that if we're having any conversation here, that needs to be addressed, because we cannot morally, as any human being, let other people suffer for the color of their skin. And I think it's disgusting, and I think we need to defund the police in the city of Grand Rapids, as they are a major power in holding that classist and racist structure in place that allows certain people to flourish while other people suffer. I think that the city of Grand Rapids having their police do any type of practice that in any way resembles stop and frisk, whether we call it Operation Safe Neighborhoods, it does not change the fact that it is stop and frisk. And you are, in this process, you are traumatizing members of the community with your police force. I think we should, significantly cut police while upping the crime reduction practices, right, that include more education, that as I'm going to speak to what many others have said, and speak towards providing everyone with the basic necessities that they need. With my last 30 seconds, my mind is blanking. I'm a little nervous up here. Yeah. Okay. I'll yield the rest of my time. My mind's blanking.
Thank you. All right, others wish to be heard?
Hello, my name is Kyla Jade Eric Eddy of the 3rd Ward of Grand Rapids. I'm here in support of defunding the Grand Rapids Police Department and using that money to help the community. We need to hold police accountable. Why shouldn't they be? Donnie shouldn't have to be arrested. We need to hold our police accountable. My friend Kirk was put into a chokehold. The police did not have to do that. It was not necessary at the time. That maneuver is supposedly banned. We need a better internal affairs division, one that's not the cops looking after the cops. We need a third party that actually looks into the matter, a real civilian appeals board, and we need to be able to represent our case. 3,000 complaints in 2019, nothing came from that of notice. Always the same offenders that we heard their names earlier, over and over again. Some say it's just a few bad apples. Well, then why don't we get rid of those bad apples? Why do we keep hearing those same names over and over again? Liability insurance, that's been talked about a few times tonight. Doctors have liabilities insurance, surgeons, for the lives that are put into their hands. We're putting people's lives into the police departments, into the police hands. In Grand Rapids, the city of Grand Rapids, the community members are paying for it. Why are the Proud Boys allowed to use megaphones? We have been told we're not allowed to. People have been arrested for the use of megaphones, which seems just ridiculous to me. And yet, the Proud Boys are publicly allowed to use megaphones, and it's even announced on Facebook that they're allowed to. That is disgusting. The attacks on the unhoused community, especially at Hartside, just days before Christmas, is horrible. The CDC recommended, I think it was the CDC, not to disturb groups of people that are just trying to survive, not just the cold of winter, but also a deadly pandemic. And we are kicking them out, and we are following them and keep harassing them where they go to. We need to put resources in the community, resources into our education, the unhoused, food for everyone. That's going to make this city better. I used to be proud of my city. I used to proudly say that I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and now I'm only pissed and disappointed in this city. Black Lives Matter, defund the Grand Rapids Police Department. What did I say?
Mr. Miller, it's not your time to speak. Thank you for your comments. You're fine. Others who wish to be heard, hi, welcome.
I kind of don't want to take too much time. I simply want to say that, well, first of all, I appreciate you for promoting a safe space to exercise our rights to freedom of speech. Many of the issues that have brought us here are in regards to our rights. Unfortunately, the Police Department of Grand Rapids is not as considerate as you when it comes to them. Many of us have been personally brutalized, myself included. I don't really know if you remember me, but my mother knew you from Grand Valley. She spoke highly of you when I was younger, and I hope you're still that person. I've been physically harmed, unlawfully arrested, and all it's shown me is that the changes I stand for genuinely need to be taken into account. The funding that is joined to the police is being used in ways that don't benefit the community, and it doesn't benefit crime prevention. All we wanted to do is bring awareness to the systematic racism and oppression that afflicts all of us. I personally believe that the police should be abolished, however, until a full plan for community reform has been created. I think that they should just have their budgets reallocated and have that money put into the community where it can help the people who are harmed. Defunding the police allows for those resources to be placed into different systems such as social work, mental health concerns, the medical systems, the education system, and so many others that need help. And at the root of all of this, it's fear. The racism is based in fear, the brutality is based in fear, and most certainly the way GRPD attempts to silence our voices, our pained voices, is rooted in fear. When we stood up last year and said that we would bring awareness to the corruption, we were not afraid to speak. When I cried last year to baton cops as tear gas canisters were loaded in my face, begging for them to respect our lives, my life, I wasn't afraid. And after all I've been through, I'm not afraid, despite the fact that I'm reminded every day why I should be. But that fear is what drives hate, and a hateful person is not who I am, and I'll never be silenced. And I think it's very sad that so many people want us to be. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Others who wish to be heard?
My name is Kirk, and I live in the 3rd Ward. You spoke to us earlier, Mayor Bliss, about respect. Where is the respect from the officers? Where is the respect from all of you, Commissioner O'Connor, when you're falling asleep at your desk? You believe in laws, right? You believe in order? Well, why is the GRPD budget higher than the mandated 32%? When we speak of defunding the police, it's not just, let's get rid of cops. But, I mean, that would be great. But it's something that you can do. It's something that you can research. It's something that you can learn about. And I don't see any of you putting in that effort. I don't see you speaking on these issues that we face in our communities. I see you up here hearing voice after voice calling for defunding the police and doing nothing. We need to hold the police accountable. Last meeting that I was at, we were told, oh, if you have an issue with the police, go report it to the department. Okay, do you know how many people in Grand Rapids are living with PTSD every day? A few weeks ago, I was downtown. I witnessed a man being arrested by the police, held by all 4 of his limbs. And I spoke to his brother about it. You know what his brother said he was doing? Running from the cops because he had PTSD. You expect that man to go and report it to someone who is going to find that the police did nothing wrong, just like they did on the 8th? You said nothing was wrong then. Okay, why were my friends tackled? What about the man who was beaten, punched in the face 9 times by GRPD officers? No accountability. They didn't find anything wrong with that. So we're supposed to go to a place that we can't trust, where we don't feel safe, and report crimes that are being committed against us? That shouldn't be happening. None of this should be happening. I wanted to finish with an anecdote. I live in the 3rd Ward, and the other day I noticed the police had stopped outside of my neighbor's house. I was concerned for my neighbors, so I went and watched. The police stayed there for a total of 30 minutes. I had no idea what was going on, so I waited for them to leave, and then I went to speak to my neighbors to make sure they were okay. It turns out a man had broken into their house and shot at one of them. The police left 30 minutes later. 30 minutes later. Was it because my neighbors are black? There were children there. The fucking, police union, whatever. They were like, oh, protect the children. Well, what about those children? They asked the police to stay and they did not. So when we want the police, they can't be found in black and brown poor neighborhoods. But I go downtown and I can see squad car after squad car stopping. I see people being harassed for doing nothing wrong. This is what the police is doing. This is why we need to defund GRPD, and you need to be held accountable.
Thank you. And I'm going to remind everyone, please refrain from cursing.
Please try not to interrupt.
My name is Lainey Hess, and I live in the 3rd Ward. I'm glad that I have the opportunity to speak today, as the Grand Rapids Police Department has made it clear that they aim to silence community members who wish to speak out about their injustices. But I'm not here to just speak on the injustices of the GRPD. I'm also here to speak on the injustices of city officials through our city's budget. Since this city pretends to respect the work of MLK, I will quote him now. Budgets are moral documents. In a city where so many are experiencing houselessness, poverty, sexual violence, addiction, food insecurity, and so much more, a moral budget would prioritize resources for our most vulnerable community members. But when I read the budget information on your website, I couldn't even find a category for housing or rape prevention or mental health services. Instead, when I scrolled down to the lesser expenses, I found the community development services, which helps organizations in the area that assist with housing and other services. Only $7 million is set aside for this part of the budget. The police receive $56 million. That's 8 times more than community development. And what do the police do with that money? They turn around and brutalize Black members of our community and arrest peaceful protesters. Additionally, they do not prevent crime. It's not their job to prevent crime. They show up after it happens. The association between crime and poverty is well documented in research. If the city was truly interested in crime prevention, you would invest in ending poverty. You would invest in education, public health, and housing. Instead, you are investing in violence against citizens. We may not have the money that the police union and other influential rich people in this city have, but we do have morality behind us. And we're just here to ask you what side of history you want to be on. Black Lives Matter.
All right, others who wish to be heard? Hi, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Charlie Clonin. I am a member of Justice for Black Lives, Socialist Alternative, and I'm a resident of the 2nd Ward of Grand Rapids. The petty bourgeois supporters of police, like Voice for the Badge and Brothers in Blue, who feel protected by police, the military, and the capital S state, do not have a materially rooted perspective for the formation of police and military forces. In the 1400s, the ruling class of developing European capitalist nations became increasingly hungry for wealth and conquered territory. They colonized and brutalized lands where people already lived, enslaved human beings, and spread smallpox blankets to native populations in North America. The United States of America is built on brutal imperialism to secure oil and wealth for the ruling class. The military, police, and yes, city commissions exist to protect bourgeois and petty bourgeois wealth and territory, and to prioritize the ability of big business to exploit an intersectional working class. The working class deserves control of the means of production and exchange, and to live lives free of state repression and bourgeois tyranny. The brutal actions we have seen from GRPD, such as shooting a man with a long-range tear gas canister on May 30th, 2020, exist to intimidate the people who make society run and further the divide between different sectors of the working class. What people need are resources and community control, not to dream of a nation that actually cares for its citizens. Capitalist power structures will never bring the value and safety the working class provides for the bourgeois and petty bourgeois. The intersectional working class deserves a fighting, socialist, feminist, and anti-racist alternative to our current capitalist system, and we need a fighting movement of the intersectional working class to bring down military and state repression. You have the opportunity to be on the ground level of this materially rooted movement that values the intersectional working class and marginalized communities. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Hi, my name is Kay Milanowski. I come from the 2nd Ward. First of all, I would like to say defund GRPD down to 32%. I would also like to request them to have personal liability insurance. I will now use the rest of my time to speak for a couple of people that were unable to be here. From MagGut, the halt of accepting phone comments greatly hinders many Grand Rapids residents from making public comments. For many people, it is not easy to get downtown, not to mention very time-consuming for average people compared to being able to take a few minutes to call. Public comment opportunities should be as easy to access as possible. Doing otherwise suggests that you don't actually want to listen to the people. This is another statement from John Meniga. U.S. police will kill another 10 to 30 plus citizens this week. At least 10, maybe more than 30. Every week, without fail, for at least the last 6.5 years. These numbers did not change during or after the election, did not change during or after the racial justice protests last summer, and have not changed during the pandemic either. Think about that last one. Crime decreased 30% nationwide during the pandemic. The number of people killed by the police did not change at all. Every week, at least 10. Some weeks, more than 30. Something's very wrong here. Once again, defund GRPD. Black Lives Matter.
Hi, welcome.
Thanks. My name is Julie Hauk. I live in Kentwood, and I also support the defund push that people have been expressing here today, but I'm here to talk about a different crisis. You're aware we have a houselessness crisis in our city. Our shelter's at capacity, and the rent moratorium's about to end, and this October, the shelter capacity is supposed to be cut in half as well. I know you have folks working on this issue, but I advocate we need a change of mindset. Let's insist that we simply won't leave people in Grand Rapids unhoused. Let's put housing stability first, because only from a safe home can people attend to their other needs. Grand Rapids was granted over $92 million from the Recovery Act to address the effects of COVID-19, and too many people lost their homes in this pandemic. We could spend 1/10 of that money and get nearly 200 units to house people, and 1/4 of that for families. It'd be a step toward a better city, a glimpse at how housing people will improve all of our lives throughout the community. Providing permanent supportive housing for chronically unhoused adults has been shown across the nation to not only be extremely cost-effective, surprisingly it's actually cheaper to just house people, but it also has the added benefit of notably improving the quality of life for the folks being housed. In Charlotte, North Carolina, they found they could go from spending over $40,000 a year per person down to $14,000, and that includes supportive care for them as well. From $40,000 down to $14,000. In Orange County, they found they could save $48,000 per person each year if they just housed the chronically homeless. It's not just money, of course. Providing permanent supportive housing improves people's physical and mental health, their sobriety, and their stability within the community. The organization in North Carolina, they made a home for unhoused people, and they found that folks' average income increased 25% after a year of being housed. They were arrested less, they spent far fewer nights in jail, and they went to the hospital far less. A reduction in hospital costs of $29,000 per tenant was noted by the city, a total of $1.8 million saved in 1 year. When asked about living there, tenants said they liked that the staff were nice to them, and they liked that they didn't feel like they had to be afraid. So clearly, from both a moral and a fiscal standpoint, we should be housing the chronically unhoused. But housing those less at risk has also been shown to be cheaper than just leaving them in the street. Over time, Grand Rapids could house everyone in our city without losing money, leaving us all safer, happier, and maybe even more connected to each other. We just need to start housing people. Or do we want to continue spending more money for worse outcomes? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Benny. I live in Grand Rapids. I work with an organization called Love that works directly with the unhoused community, and I would like to echo what the last speaker just said. Being on the ground with unhoused community members since I was about in high school in a bunch of different cities, it's all the same story. A lot of people think people that are unhoused are lazy and don't want to find jobs, or they're drug addicts. Well, they criminalize that, and putting the budget into the police to harass those people is preventing them from getting jobs, preventing them from getting help for addiction, and preventing them from living their lives. They're living in fear. I would also like to bring up the incident that happened in Hartside again. I brought it up at the last meeting and there was no response when you guys had your turn to speak. I think that was a pretty monumental moment, especially in the city. I spent a few nights with those people in those encampments, and I didn't feel unsafe a single moment. They had a structure and a system where they kept each other safe without the need of the police. So I think looking for more programs, funding people that are actually trained to deal with people who are addicts, who need help, who don't need to be restrained, people with mental disabilities that need help, that don't need to be brutalized. Things like this man with the red hat as a beautiful example of somebody in the community who is there to prevent violence. The police do not prevent violence. They're strapped ready for aggression. That's what their training is focused on, and so that's what they lead to happen. And very anxious at speaking, so I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, others who wish to be heard?
Mayor, how are you?
Good.
Esteban Moreno, retired GRPD, retired in 2015. I guess I want to start out with some simple education here. I went on the city site for city ordinances, and I think it's pretty well written, especially under the just the general description of what these ordinances are. Trespassing, noise ordinances, destruction of property, assaults against persons, disobeying police officers, blah, blah, blah. It all goes on and on and on. Pretty simple. I think these young people don't quite know how to read laws and regulations when it regards to civil obedience and civil behavior. Pretty simple, I think. I think their numbers are skewed. Out of over 340 million people in the United States, back in 2020, 241 black men were killed in the United States, not in Grand Rapids, not in Michigan, in the United States. That's a huge number. It's kind of like COVID. Kind of a little overdone myself, I think. But anyways, personally, I think the department is getting a bad rap. They're a good department. They train and train and train. If you look at their statistics, the hours that they train blows away just about any department in the United States, and especially here in Grand Rapids, or in Michigan, I'm sorry. So I wonder why there's so much scrutiny, so much focus on GRPD. Mr. Washington, I think I brought this up to you before. You had Brandon Davis, you hired him on. Who knows how much you're paying him? But I did some checking on him. I just made a few phone calls. Wayne County wanted him gone. Muskegon wanted him gone. He did one ride-along in his career as a prosecutor. One ride-along in Wayne County at the very beginning of his career. One. What does that say about him? Does he really know what he's talking about when it comes to policies and procedures? No, he doesn't. Doesn't, not one bit. Didn't know what FATS trainings was. Didn't know what simunitions training was. Yet, he's telling our department how to handle themselves, policies and procedures. Seriously, how much money did you waste on his employment? Has he done anything since he hired him? I haven't seen anything. So I'm kind of questioning that myself. I guess in finishing, I'd like to say to Chief Payne, keep your head up, buddy. That's all you can do. Stay strong. Second thing is to finish with, defund the educational institutions that are educating these young folks because they don't know what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very, no comments. I will adjourn this meeting. Everyone has a right to be heard. There are limits to what can and cannot be said. It's very clear that people are allowed to express their opinion. Hi, welcome.
Hi, my name is Mark and I'm from Grand Rapids. What in the world is going on here? Seriously. You got one group antagonizing another group, then antagonizing another group, then antagonizing another group. Quite frankly, the attitude here in this city sucks. And I'm for one is getting tired of it. Well, look, I'm not in no group. I don't want to be in no group. Don't want to be in one, never will be in one. But I know one thing. I'm from the triangle, okay? I have a family member who's a retired police detective. I have family members who had run-ins with the law. I had a family member who was killed by police. So I know the whole gamut, all the way around. And yes, I know we got good police officers here, but it's some of the bad ones that are making the good ones look bad. And the corrupt police unions are not holding those bad cops accountable. It's simple as that. And if they continue to just sit back and do nothing, the results are going to be much worse. Now, I'm for police, but I'm for good police, not bad police. Like the guy in Detroit. 85 complaints, more than anyone in the history of that department. And he gets promoted to sergeant by the former chief who was trying to run for governor. Not good. We had a guy in 2016, Terrence Crutcher, killed by a police officer. 2 felony domestic violence convictions against her. Not good. Can't have that. Now you want to arrest people, arrest them, but you got to do it the right way, not the wrong way. Now as for these individuals talking about defunding the police, look, defund, fund, I don't care. Something has to be done. Why don't y'all get together, sit at a round table, and talk? And talk about this. Because selling wolf tickets at each other is not going to work. Look, we're not New York.
I'm sorry, your time's up. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Hi.
Hello, my name is Brandon Bilski. I live in the 2nd Ward. I am here in support of Justice for Black Lives, and I think it's very dangerous what is going on in our city, and I know you've heard many comments today on both sides, and I'd first like to question how many people speaking for Voice of the Badge, how many of them don't have a bed to go home to? How many of them are worried about the crime issue truly in the way that people on the other side are worried every single day about the way crime is affecting us. When you are getting this anger from everyone, know that it is from a need for safety and a need to see violence in a daily grind. You are getting this anger, and when you choose to speak out and do what is the loving, humane thing to do, you will get love from these people. And I was raised to debate. I started debating at 14 years old, and I myself am at risk of homelessness right now. And I didn't get unemployment for COVID. And And it would be really hard to battle depression if I didn't have debate and public speaking training to come here and say, look, like there are deep issues going on. Melinda, Kurt, Sunita, Joel, Rosalind, Anita, Mark, John, Joseph, Nathaniel. I say your names, I give time to your names because I give time to that real connection and dialogue. I know you're struggling with this, and now is a difficult time to be a leader, but you are some of the most powerful people in the world right now. If you think about how many people are in charge of cities like this, and people are hurting, and you do have a deeper choice. I brought this book, Strike, How the Furniture Workers Changed Grand Rapids, and there's a photo of the cops shooting into a mob crowd for the striking workers of Furniture City in 1911 when they stood up for their wages, and the city stood behind them, and the mayor stood behind the people, and the power of the people was threatened, challenged, and destroyed. And that is why we have a city manager that holds all the cards and makes so much more than the rest of the commissioners. This is power, and power needs to be challenged now. To stay silent is to err on the side of the oppressor. That's Desmond Tutu. And the most peaceful revolution that we've seen to date was in South Africa. And you all have power. And there are many weak people who still make it here today to come to you, to ask you to not be silent. And I come to you with love because I truly believe that you can start speaking, and you will have the support from the people when you are going to re-elect if you choose peace and love. Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, welcome.
My name is August, and I'm here in support of Justice for Black Lives. I live in Grattan, but I go to school, I work, and I put a lot of time, money, energy, and life into Grand Rapids. Speaking as a youth of the community, the future of the community, I don't like what's happening. And an overamount of the city's future doesn't like what's happening. Studies have shown that cops do not deter crime. Resources and funding into the community deters crime. Our police force is far too militarized. GRPD brings out riot gear every time they even get a whiff of the Justice for Black Lives organization peacefully exercising their basic rights. We utilize our First Amendment rights, and they bring out tear gas and rubber bullets. They target our leaders, they harass our leaders, they abuse our leaders, they arrest our leaders. But the Proud Boys, they say, who cares? You know, it's their buddies. We need to defund GRPD down to 32%, as well as make the police responsible for their own liability insurance, and instead allocate those funds back into the community, specifically the communities that need it most. Black and brown communities, the houseless communities, queer communities, poor communities, education, investing in social workers trained in non-violent de-escalation, etc. Because we paid for it, and we should be able to decide where our money goes and what is done with it. Need I remind all of you on this panel, there is an election coming. Think on that. To end, I'd just like to say that at the end of the day, these cops can take off the badge. Our leaders and our community members cannot take off the color of their skin. A blue life is not a life, it's a job, and you can quit. Defund GRPD, Black Lives Matter, I yield my time.
Hi, I'm Carolyn. I live in the First Ward. So I had a few things that I wanted to say, probably not a ton, but first I would like to echo what people have said about accessibility of the meeting. If we have previously been able to call in, I don't see why we can't continue that. I guess now we have a lot of people speaking, but it doesn't seem fair to prioritize people who are able to make it in person to this meeting. After that, I would like to comment on the discussion that people in our group are just unruly children who don't know how to read what the rules are for the city, and state that whenever things have happened when I have been present, we have been told conflicting information about what is and is not allowed when people are speaking downtown. For instance, tonight, as people commented on, we were told that you would be given a citation the first time before being arrested when that hasn't happened previously, as far as I'm aware. And then in addition to that, people aren't going out and assaulting people or doing anything like that. And we're still worried about what the GRPD is going to do. Like, I came down tonight, I'm not planning to do anything other than come here and speak. And, you know, if people get arrested, go down to try to give them a ride once they're bailed out of jail. And I was still worried that something would happen to me. I still made plans about somebody to come feed my cats tonight if something happened. And also on the viewing us as being bullies for coming here, we're not doing anything other than talking. When we were down there, I didn't really see the interaction with the man who came up to approach the protesters, but as far as I could tell, people just walked over there to talk to him and ask what he was doing. They weren't threatening him in any way. Apparently he was just feeling threatened by the presence of people who were commenting on GRPD. Yeah, I especially find this a little bit hypocritical from people where the voice of GRPD or voice for GRPD is coming in and saying that, you know, if you consider defunding the police even a little bit, then none of you will win an election ever again. And yet we're the bullies. So, yeah, that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, others wish to be heard? Hi, welcome.
Hello. I'm just going to get, my name's Mike. I lived in Grand Rapids for 33 years. Just get a couple things out of the way in case I run out of time. Defund the GRPD, education, not incarceration. Resources are crime prevention. Thank you. Hold the police accountable. There's been over 3,000 complaints in 1 year, and nobody was fired. Like, what is going on? What's going on with the clergy and patrol program? Are you kidding me? You're familiar with separation of church and state, right? Like, that's a pretty basic tenet of the government. I don't understand why this is happening. I do understand that both of these groups are self-aggrandizing, manipulative, murderous wolves in sheep clothing, so maybe that's enough for them to work together. Maybe that's the logic there. I don't understand. Please hire actual, educated, secular professionals to mitigate the violence and blatant discrimination of the GRPD. Right now, your budget increase is going towards militarizing religious zealots, completely disrespecting the law of separation of church and state. Like, what is happening? We need to hold the police accountable. No more internal affairs. We need a community-based or third-party-based investigation committee of some kind outside of the police. Like, the idea of the police regulating themselves is ridiculous, right? Right? You see that they discriminate based on the color of people's skin and their political leanings. They are practicing political silencing because they have the power to do that. And you are allowing that. Despicable. You commissioners know you're making this process scary for citizens to come and speak, right? As the person before me said. People who just want to come and speak here are afraid because of what they see happen to Donnie. Like, this meeting is for the public, right? Do you want people to want to come here and speak their mind? Do you want them to feel safe doing that? You have created an environment through your inaction where that cannot happen. Just letting the police bully people? They rode by and were taunting us while we were there at the corner. I was thinking you'd end up in your positions here as commissioners of the city because you wanted to help the city grow in accordance with the wishes of the people. How can you truthfully say you are doing that while you also are literally intimidating citizens from speaking up by not doing anything about the police? We've got city commissioner elections next December. Repart, Jones, Lanier, France, all coming up. Not sure if you're up for re-election, but times are different. Everything's recorded. We see what you're doing. We've got recordings of the political suppression committed by the GRPD, blatant racism, and then there's y'all sitting here not doing anything. We have both of those images side by side. That's what's going out to the public. So good luck in your re-election campaign. You might consider the consequences of your cowardly inaction, not only for the negative, degenerative, rotting effects they have on the character of our city, which you've heard from a lot of people who are ashamed to live here. You are elected to uplift, but also I would ask you to consider the consequences that your inaction have on your re-election campaign. Many people are watching, and we're all judging you, and it's recorded.
Thank you. Your
Your
time's
cowardice
up.
is amazing.
Thanks. Your time's up. All right. Others who wish to be heard?
Hello, council members. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Jessie Brenner, and I have lived in the city my entire life. I am here today to speak about reallocating funds into more important and pressing issues into our city. The GRPD budget is currently over its 32%, and if we bring it down, I would also like to point out that GRPD has been targeting and harassing members of the Grand Rapids community unfairly and wrongfully, and arresting members for exercising their right to free speech while allowing others to do that. While supporting other groups like the Proud Boys to exercise their free speech. It is my belief and others that our tax dollars would be much better spent on issues like getting the lead out of our water and real affordable housing for the houseless families that have lost everything during this pandemic unfairly, instead of continually moving them and forcing them further from getting the help that they need. I would like to see more police accountability by the way of no more internal affairs and having community-based or third-party investigations. Another way to help our police be accountable for their brutality might be having the police have their own insurance so that when they use too much power, they are personally responsible for their actions and will have to pay for the damages that they do to the people and this community, instead of the taxpayers being responsible for those costs. I love my city so much. I want to live here, and I want to help make this city better for everyone. And that means making the changes that can, and that we have the means to make the changes that can help so many people live happy, healthy lives here. So I ask you to please focus on making changes that are best for everyone instead of the changes that will fill wallets and cause more harm to those who live here. Please hear us and know that we care and will continue to work to make Grand Rapids the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Hello, my name is Amy Heckman. I'm proudly a lifelong resident of Grand Rapids. In my 45 years, I have been blessed to live in 49503, 04, 05, 06, 07, and back to 04, to come full circle. I am here and I am humbled to stand with and in support, following the lead of our young Black leaders and Justice for Black Lives, as well as the advocates that work with them. I believe capping the Grand Rapids Police Department funding at 32% is really necessary at this time. We are about to see a convergence of many different factors that is really unprecedented. We're entering our fourth wave of the coronavirus pandemic. Just as the eviction moratorium is about to end, just as extended unemployment is about to end, and just as the pandemic safety net for our unhoused community is about to end. I think that any extra dollar, any extra penny we should keep in mind at what is in our very immediate future. Additionally, the idea of holding the GRPD accountable, I had the opportunity to drive downtown last Saturday and see a live protest that was a, shall we say, right-leaning, politically speaking, and very white in terms of the demographics of who was protesting. I saw protesters in the street. I saw protesters with megaphones. I saw someone carrying an American flag down the yellow line in the middle of either Jefferson or Welpy, whatever street they were on at the time. And I feel like we should really be ashamed that there's such a dichotomy. There's two very separate Grand Rapids protesters, right? Or how we how the police interact with the protesters. It looks very different. Sometimes I've been down to support and kind of lend a voice with Justice for Black Lives. And sometimes there's 12, 20, maybe young adults out there, young activists speaking their mind, and there's always a police presence. There were probably 100 people lining Jefferson and Wealthy last Saturday. So I hope we keep this in mind as we move forward, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. All right, others who wish to be heard?
Hello, my name is Mariah. I live in Grand Rapids. I've lived here for a couple years now. I'm originally from Lansing. I am a social work graduate student at a local school here. And primarily what I want to speak to you all today is a huge part of my role in other social workers is to actively listen. However, it is a choice to actively listen. There have been dozens and dozens of speakers that continue to show up and have continued to call into your meetings and just ask for simple things, such as the basic human rights for the unhoused community in Grand Rapids, such as reallocating funds from the GRPD to neighborhoods in your communities as well that need those resources. It's very unfortunate that a large group of people have left this meeting early after calling many of the activists and organizers children, but that's not what I see. I see a lot of people very empowered and passionate about these issues, and they continue to show up, and they continue to take time out of their day to bring forth issues that keep going on in your backyards as well. So what I just want to ask of you all today is just really actively listen when these people are speaking. Really take time out of your day to just think about how a perfect world could happen if we're really just hearing people out. The people earlier mentioned they back the blue, they support military members, et cetera, et cetera. I have a brother that's a Marine. I love him. But that at the end of the day, he's still a black man, and I'm still a black woman. We cannot change the color of our skin. We did not ask it to be born black. We are not the minorities in this country. We are becoming the majority. Black and brown people, we matter. Black lives matter. All we are asking of you is just to hear us out and to have empathy. Many of you have children, I'm sure, or loved ones that are youngsters. And it honestly brings me so much passion to see young people continue to show up and develop their voices, especially over the past year during the pandemic. That's all that they're asking, is just have a table where they can come to you, offer solutions, ideas. You should be welcoming them. There should not be so much pushback. And with that, I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, others wish to be heard?
Yeah, my name is Martha Cooper. I've been coming, as you all know, for several years, mostly talking about homelessness. But in this time, I've seen other issues, and just as pressing. The woman that spoke about housing is telling you the figures and the math that you already know. And you've known that for a long time. And you do nothing. These are human beings. This is a moral issue. I find it just kind of disgusting, and it's not even a good word. So disheartening, so hurtful, that you want to have police align with religious leaders as if this is a moral city. It's not. We talk about these people that are talking about defunding. You know, I raised a son over the last 3 recessions in this city, and I love it too. I've always volunteered. It was harder when it became about people having what they need. It became very hard on my heart. I kept going. I spoke with you. I've had hopes to watch some of you come in new. I spoke last time about, it was a year ago, that you put on there, tried to say defund the police, but nothing happened. And we all spoke a year ago to you. And I understand that you were a city manager that was hired out of Austin, where there is so much gentrification. By the way, Austin's just defunded their police. Okay. We don't need to be Austin. I remember you watching when I was at an event for the Justice for Black Lives group, kind of casing the joint and trying to figure out how much of a threat these people are, when all they want is for their children to be safe. They have no reason to expect it. I have 48 minutes to tell you something that I witnessed. 2, 1, I don't want to miss this because I ran out of 3 minutes time. You want to say that you don't have money to put into the communities, but you spent $6 million to move a drain that is brand new so that people could, all these developers could gentrify their way up the west side of the river. And you did that in a pandemic when everyone was under the gun, when people in this city who vote for you, except for Mr. Moody, he's appointed and ran unopposed. So you've done nothing, absolutely nothing. Remember the housing now. There was nothing done out of that, but we all kept going and we spent some money on it. It's like you're hired, Mr. Washington, make sure no change ever does happen. And you stopped pushing it.
Martha, your time is up.
I was 3 minutes second.
That you're,
I can talk in 3 seconds. Don't cut me off again, Ms.
Martha, your time is up. Hi, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Hampton, and it's so good to be back together. I live in Grand Rapids in the 3rd Ward. I was present here 2 weeks ago when all of the people were discussing defunding the police department. Well, I stand to discuss police and community relations. On that very night, on my way home, I was headed south on Madison Avenue. As I approached Dickinson, there was about several police officers there. There was a young man sitting on the steps. I assumed that they were giving him medical attention. I really didn't know. And I drove a little further, turned into a parking lot to go into a store, and all of a sudden the police yelled, "Get out of here!" I stopped abruptly, went back, got in my car, and then as I drove further, there was a police, told me to come, turn east on Dickinson in a very nice, quiet, and respectable manner. Police are law enforcement agents, not judges, not prosecutors or legislators. They have been given the honor to service the community. They are service agents that are used to enforce the law, to serve and protect. It's just like a teacher. You know, teachers are service agents, and their service is they provide education. Positive community relations is the foundation of both systems. If a teacher disrespects, harass, or fail to employ the proper de-escalation tactics when they are dealing with parents or students, then it severs the relationship and creates an environment of distrust. Same applies to police officers. I support law enforcement, but I do not support police misconduct. My daughter was a deputy sheriff, so I know it from both sides, good and bad. On the flip side of that, one snowy night in December, on my way home, December 31st, which is New Year's Eve, I had a flat tire. A police officer stopped, took off of his jacket, laid his jacket down in the snow, and changed my tire. So, with that said, there's a problem, and how do we all fix it? It needs to be fixed. There are those officers who are dishonoring that blue badge of honor. I support law and order, but I do not support police misconduct. And there is a problem, and it's up to all of us to correct it. Not one person, not Chief Payne, all of us.
Thank you. All right, others wish to be heard?
Hello, my name is Adam Sherman. I'm a resident of this city's 3rd Ward. I want first to echo the comments of many of my neighbors who have called on you to make these meetings accessible. Make these meetings accessible, make the call-in portion of this meeting accessible, make this public comment portion of the meeting accessible to all the people that are in this city. That is disgusting that you immediately, as soon as you had the opportunity to get rid of the call-in comment, you did it without hardly the blink of an eye, and that is very upsetting. You do not need to be able to come into this building to be part of the democratic process. So I want to say that first. Secondly, I did come here specifically today to be in support of the Justice for Black Lives organization. I came here to support the defunding of the Grand Rapids Police Department to the mandatory minimum of 32%. I know for sure that putting that money back into our community, putting that money into education, putting that money into housing people, putting that money into mental health services, and putting that money into public transportation are all ways that we will help this city, all ways that we will prevent crime, if that is your real concern. If you are really concerned about helping the people of this city, adding more armed thugs to the street is not the answer. Adding more money so that they can militarize the police department is not the answer. The answer is taking care of each other, taking care of the people of the city, putting that money where it actually helps, putting people in houses, getting people the care and treatment that they need. That is how we help each other. That is how we help this city, not by putting more money into the police budget, not by targeting and harassing black activists in the city. After watching what has happened in this city over the past year, I was still surprised, which is on my bad, that this police department would come out and openly say that they are here to protect the free speech of the Proud Boys, a known hate group, a group that is considered a terrorist group by the country of Canada, our neighbors to the north. The police department went out of their way to say that they will protect their free speech, while at the same time arresting this community leader time and time again for the same thing. That is disgusting. And if you are in any way really caring about the people of this city, it's time for you to act, and it's time for you to show that. It's time for you to prove that you really do care and that you really want to make a difference, that you really want to make this city better. Because I have seen nothing. I've seen nothing from this commission over the past year to prove that. I've seen much more from a lot of the people in this room. I've seen them take care of each other. I've seen them go out into the community. I've seen them pass out food and water. I've seen them help people get shelter. I've seen them clear sidewalks for people in the winter. These people, these are the community. We are taking care of each other. You need to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to close that public comment period, and I will turn to my colleagues. I'll start over here with Commissioner O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just at last meeting I talked about some stuff at the state, and I want to keep that theme going a little bit. You know, I just saw today that there's a lot of talk about affordable housing again tonight. Obviously, we're talking about our commitment to affordable housing and putting up to $20 million in the Affordable Housing Fund over the next 2 budget cycles. But Governor announced today that she's going to set aside another $100 million of federal dollars to go into affordable housing projects around the state, which I think is a great thing. And it's also last week announced that there were 6 low-income housing tax credit projects that got funded for Grand Rapids this cycle, which is the most that's ever been approved. So housing takes a long time, but I'm appreciative of the commitments of both this community and the state to continue to work towards better outcomes.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Jones?
No comment.
Commissioner Moody?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate everything that I've heard tonight from all sides. We as a city commission, we hear what you have to say, and sometimes we can't respond back to you right away. I appreciate the fact that some of you have done some history, which is great in reference to me. But I want to make a statement that's very clear, and I need all of you to hear this. We as a body are out in the community. We are doing things. We are not putting it out on social media. Our doors have been open for some of you to come and talk to us. And I think the thing that we do at times is we sit and we listen to some of you, and some of you insult us. For example, Someone said tonight that I'm receiving monies from some rich conglomerate group, which is untrue, which is false. You don't even know me. And I think it's important that if you want to get to know me, come talk to me. I'm here. I've been where you've been. And I can go a lot further. But you need to come talk to me before you accuse me of anything. Now, I'm not taking it personal. I'm just sharing with you because a lot of you think that things aren't getting done, and they are. But I would ask you, come talk to me. Call me up. I'm accessible. I don't run from anybody. Call me. You got my number? Give me a call. Come see me. Let's sit down and let's talk. That's the whole essence of this whole thing, is to have a communication so we can find out what page and what street we need to be on. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lanier?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to all of you who are with us this evening, and thank you for the comments that have been shared. I actually, one of my colleagues before the meeting started just talked about the fact that we had members from the community who are on different sides of this community and police relations issue with us this evening, and I was hopeful that it would have been an opportunity for you all to hear from one another. So it was kind of disappointing that some members of the other group departed before other perspectives were shared.
Mr. Byrd, it's Commissioner's turn to speak.
But I think that for me, it sounds a lot like, I think Commissioner Moody, in your comments about talking, I think it just sounds like an opportunity for there to be a forum, I think, for more discussion to happen. Unfortunately, this public comment is an opportunity for us to hear from you. It isn't our platform to share with you. We issue our discussions and decisions through action. And so I think the best way to have dialogue is by reaching out to have specific dialogue with those who you want to have dialogue with. And so I'm hoping that anybody who shared anything tonight who's interested in having more dialogue would do that, and not just to us, but to others who are in the room as well, because I think that that's critical to getting to the root of some of the issues, and I think also getting to the solutions. All of our information is at the back of the agenda, and I stand ready to have conversations with whomever would like to have a conversation with me. Please email me, and I don't hesitate to have those discussions. I think the last thing I'll say is that, you know, through some of those conversations, you may find that people may not agree with everything, and I'm married and I don't agree with everything that my husband has to say. And so I think that's just the nature of healthy dialogue, but people should be able to talk without threatening anybody, without name calling, without bullying, without, you know, sharing about re-elections. I'm certainly not concerned about any of those things. This for me is about just consistently doing the right thing, consistently listening to the community. I've written notes tonight. I've literally done this every single commission since I've been a commissioner. This isn't a show for me. I'm not here to play games. I'm not here to pacify anybody or any issue. But I am here consistently to be able to hear from the community and to make policy changes based on on the feedback from the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Repart?
Thanks, Mayor. Just want to express my appreciation for people giving up a Tuesday night, staying until 9:30 at night, and I'm pleased by the way that people brought their full emotion into the room, and I'm grateful for that. And yet, it outside of a couple of moments, made it a place where everybody could express themselves. So I do appreciate that. I thank you for bringing your full emotion and all of the care and concern you have for your neighbors into the room. And I too was a little disappointed that not everybody could hear everybody's comments, because I do think that when we do hear each other in that way, that something different happens. And so just want to thank you all for coming again and for bringing your full emotion to the room respectfully.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Isasi?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll add my thanks for those who came to express their thoughts and echo what you said, Commissioner Ruppert. I also want to say thank you to our city staff over the last couple of weeks. There's been, as we live in this pandemic and live in hopefully a better normal, events that are happening, and I want to just specifically thank Miss Yvette Pittman for some of her work following different events that happened in the Second Ward. I also want to say thank you, Eric DeLong. I've had multiple people since it was announced your retirement say, oh my gosh, I can't believe Eric's retiring, and lots of very many well wishes. So it's interesting to know that you've been doing this for 26 years here. So I just want to mention that. I also want to say my condolences to the family of the young man that was killed in a traffic accident when he was on his bike, and I believe it was in the First Ward. He's a family member of my family member, and just continue to just remember people. And there was an individual, and I can't remember your name, gentleman, person in the red shirt, about just saying our names. And so Esteban was a young man who was working to, from what I know from other family members, to rebuild his life, and it was taken away. I don't know the instances of what happened in that vehicle and bike accident, but I wanted to say his name and remember his light into this world. And you know, sometimes I'm on Facebook too much and social media, but sometimes it's a gift when you get a memory from a year ago. And so I don't really have a lot of words to say about how I feel about this evening. I personally am happy to be back. I think this is not the only way that we would connect with individuals. It is one of the ways, as you said, Commissioner Lanier. But in an Aztec culture, there is a moon goddess who got chopped up into a lot of little pieces. And the mythology is that because the gods are petty. And this moon goddess is a symbol for reconstruction and reframing. One that is always putting the pieces together in a new way. An ongoing process of making and unmaking. And that there is never any resolution, just the process of healing. And this popped up into my newsfeed this morning, but yet somehow it captures sort of my feeling, how I feel at the end of this meeting, and really what times it feels like to be an elected leader. Sometimes thinking, you know, these are your ideas, the processes, feeling the greatest highs and some of the greatest lows. To know that change is often incremental, and I don't think that's by virtue of anybody on this body. I think it's the reality of municipal government and government overall. I have selected this vocation, if you will, and have made peace with that, even if sometimes it can be frustrating. So the point in the book, Luz en lo Oscuro, is that chopping things, yourself, your art, or systems, up into little pieces can be a necessary and healthy part of creating something new. Thank you all and have a safe evening.
Thank you, Commissioner. City Clerk?
I have to follow that. Very nicely said, Commissioner. This is part of civic engagement is coming to a meeting and publicly engaging as well. Another part of civic engagement is voting. There is an election on Tuesday, August 3 for Grand Rapids Public School millage. So absentee ballots are available, but also the precincts will be open from 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. So check michigan.gov/vote to verify your precinct. And if you're not registered to vote yet, you can still register to vote. So that's another part of a very important part of civic engagement. Just because it's as a clerk, I always say there's no such thing as a small election. They're all part of the process, and so come out and vote.
Thank you. City Attorney?
Certainly, thank you, Mayor. So just to comment on a couple of things I heard in your comparison to other protesting groups. So the group that protests, I believe, Jefferson and Wealthy around the hospital, that group did secure a permit from our events office. So that's the difference, the same permit that we encourage you all to get, so that there's, what I said last time, that it hopefully limits negative interaction with the police department. The second comparison was to the Proud Boys. So keep in mind that it's a person's constitutional right for free speech. And we can't base it on what the content of the speech is. We can't go there. And so it's important that you understand that when it comes to that group. We can't get into what the content of their speech is. So when we say that we support their First Amendment rights, we support the right. It doesn't mean that we agree with the content of their speech. Thank you.
Thank you, City Attorney. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. It's been a long day today, but a good day. We've been able to accomplish much, and I want to also thank the city staff for a lot of the work that goes behind the scenes. And as I said this morning, my sincere appreciation to Deputy City Manager DeLong for his career of service to the public, and specifically 20 plus years to this city and over 40 years in the municipal service. But regarding today, a lot of things have been accomplished, and all of them don't necessarily become visible at night. Yeah. That the time of public comment, I think as you've heard from other elected officials, this is not a time to take action. The action items are on the agenda. So the action items like the approval of the funding for the SAFE task force that was both discussed at fiscal committee as well as public safety today. Those were action items that were taken by this commission today, or the action items of allowing development for the Grand Rapids area Black business group to have a space in the third ward to help to fund and service other Black entrepreneurs. Those were action items that were taken earlier today with incentives that were supplied by the city to help in that development. The same incentives that people have inquired about in other business development, or the conversation during the public safety meeting by the office that's separate from the internal affairs office after the police chief did his report today about some of the performance of the police department, and transparently, not and some of you quoted some of the statistics today about some of the complaints. That was some of the information that was shared. But the oversight office also talked about violence prevention. I think that's what we all want to see in our community, because night after night we hear it. Not everything's reported, and I don't want to share the stories, but there's certainly an interest in the entire community to prevent violence, both that's happening to community members, and what I've heard today is about violence that's happening to people, even in interaction with the police department. And we've been very intentional about ensuring everything that we can do, from the chief himself, and I want to thank him for being here this evening and for listening to the complaints. And I again invite those of you who are willing to talk to him. He stayed after the meeting last week and not a person approached him. Not a person approached him. I'm talking now. I didn't talk while you were talking, brother. So give me that. My skin just as huge as yours. Give me that same respect. As a matter of fact, I appreciate you coming here, because I remember the first time that we met, it was at one of the rallies that I wanted to be present at. Let me finish.
Our city manager's turn to speak.
I want to be present at, and I'm going to tell you why you don't remember that encounter, because I broke whatever line the police department had to speak to those who were organizing, and the comment was, I wanted you just a token. I want to speak to somebody who's in charge. Give me somebody who's in a uniform. Sometimes you got to listen before you speak. Chief was there. I was his boss. So we never had the opportunity to properly meet beyond Facebook, social media, or a 3-minute pitch, which is not dialogue. That's debate. And I appreciate this platform, but I would invite not only anybody to meet with the chief. I'm open tonight. I'll stay all night if I have to, if people want to discuss. I'm not going to stay here to name call, I'm not going to be part of that. But if you want to have a discussion, I'm open to it. I'll stay here all night to talk to anybody who wants to talk. So I've been doing this 26 years. And before I did on the public side, I was on your side. I went to a protest, and not to protest just policy, but to protest people who actually wore the sheets, the KKK protest, real protests, and got convicted to do this work from the other side of the dais, to do the good work. So I'm not playing games either. I mean, I didn't come here from, and somebody said Austin, I didn't come here for Austin for it. I had a job. And I get a job a whole lot of other places. I wanted to be here to make a difference in this community. And the record, whatever you may think, the record does speak if you read it. If you read it. And I'd love to share it with you, but what I know is the work is not done. And that's why we're still here. That's why we come here every other week. And because I still believe in this city, I believe in everybody that's up here. I believe I believe in our police department. I believe in this community, because if not, there is no hope. And granted, there is a desire to defund the police department, to get it down to 32%. That's not on the agenda tonight. That's a budget conversation that we'll have at the appropriate time. So every week you can come, but if it's not on the agenda, they're not going to vote on defunding the police department tonight. They're not going to vote on it next week. Because we are 3 weeks into the new adopted budget that decreased the resources from the Grand Rapids Police Department from 38% to 35 point whatever percent of the general operating fund budget. So there will come a time for that conversation again, and we're going to listen to all the conversations, but we're going to make sure that we can do everything to keep the community safe. But I also want to share the comment earlier, and I'll conclude, with the polarization of the community. And I've heard it shared, the young man that said it earlier, and so many other people so eloquently said it. This is just not a good forum. It's great for public comment, but it is not the right forum that gets us to a place where we are really listening to each other and coming up with solutions different from what our special interests want. I hope that's a place we can get to. I'll be in the back of the room, standing next to the police chief, for those who want to talk after the meeting.
Thank you, City Manager. And I'll close with just a couple final comments and really give my appreciation to everyone in this community who cares deeply about this city, because that is what I believe brings all of us together. And regardless of what you believe about any of us sitting up here, I can tell you we do this because we love this city as much as you love this city. And we're committed to doing what we can in this season of our lives to make this a better city for everyone. We may disagree on policy, we may disagree on how to get there, but we are working hard on urgent issues, complex issues, and we are working on issues around housing. We are just as concerned as all of you about the families and the individuals impacted by this pandemic and who are concerned about a potential eviction. We are working hard to set up affordable housing. We are advocating in Lansing for LIHTC credits so that we can build low-income housing. We are committed to crime prevention, and we saw that today with some of the decisions that were made. You know, we're actively working, all of us, in different spaces throughout this community. And again, we may not agree on everything, as Commissioner Lanier said, even those of us around this table who've served for a long time, we disagree on policy issues. But what I know is that what brings us together is a shared love and commitment to this community. And that is, as the city manager said, that is what gives me a lot of hope that we are going to be able to move forward in a positive way to make our city a better place. And as the one woman who spoke tonight said, it takes all of us. It takes all of us to be a part of the solution. So thank you for being here. I appreciate my colleagues. I'm also going to give my appreciation to Mr. Eric DeLong, who has served this community and others and has spent the vast majority of his life in public service. Mr. Miller, do not interrupt me. You have had your chance to speak. Eric DeLong, thank you for your service. And with that, we're adjourned.